Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Yes, you will slit my throat and torture my soul for eternity or something. Luminous nodded her head in satisfaction. Honestly, I'm surprised that it was that easy to convince Luminous, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I stretched as I got up off my chair. Well, since we have all this sorted out and have a general plan, I'm going to head back to Tempest. I want to check in on everyone. I haven't had a chance to talk to any of my subordinates since the attack. Luminous nodded. Very well, I will be in touch. Are you going to be coming too, Rimuru? I asked. Rimuru nodded. Yeah, I still have some people I need to check on. It's probably best if I don't leave those nobles waiting for too long. I nodded. Alright, that sounds good to me. I then looked at Luminous. I'll leave Laplace here. I trust you not to go overboard with your punishment. We do still need him alive to give to Elmgia. Luminous nodded with an evil grin. Of course. I turned to Laplace and stopped controlling him completely, giving him back some of his free will. All of a sudden, his eyes went wide. Damn it. Bastard. He shouted. I knew he was trying to move but was unable to. He likely just received all the memories of our interaction. He knew all the information he gave to us would be used against his comrades. Feel free to do what you wish to him, Luminous. I made it so he will follow all your orders, but his old ego has returned to the forefront, so he is the same person that killed Roy and Hinata. I'll come back to pick Laplace up when we have the meeting with Elmgia and perhaps her mother. Again, thanks for offering up Laplace. And with that, I snapped my fingers, teleporting the both of us back to Tempest. Chapter 119, Meeting Between Rulers. Feel free to do what you wish to him, Luminous. I made it so he'll follow all your orders, but his old ego has returned to the forefront, so he is the same person that killed Roy and Hinata. It would have been pointless if I had just given Luminous a doll with no real ego. That was practically a different person. I gave Luminous one final nod and then I snapped my fingers, teleporting Rimuru and I back to Tempest. We appeared in the meeting room that we left from, my barrier still surrounding the room, so no one should have caught on to the fact that we left Tempest entirely. Rimuru sighed, took a seat at the table, and slouched back. Man, that was something. I took the seat in front of him and nodded. Yup, who knew all of that was happening in the background? So many things happened in such a short period of time. At first we were just having fun drinking at a VIP bar, and then the attack happened. I dealt with some attackers myself, dealt with the Chaos Dragon, and then found out about Hinata. Luminous explained everything to us, after which we interrogated Mariabelle and Laplace. It was hard to believe all that happened in a single night. Time travel, huh? I can understand why Rimuru is so astonished even now. Time travel is something that's just that hard to wrap your head around. Even I can't claim to fully understand it. What is your plan to deal with Ecchi? Asked Rimuru. Once the festival has fully wrapped up, while Ecchi and Mariabelle are traveling back to their various locations, I plan for Mariabelle to order Ecchi to come with her to have a discussion. Once they are at the location of my choosing, I'll show up and kill Ecchi. I could also always wait until Ecchi arrived back at the Free Guild, use time stop, and quickly delete him from existence before vanishing, but this was personal. I wanted him to look me in the face, knowing I was killing him. I just didn't want to be an idiot about it and let him get away after all that, so I'd need to prepare. Rimuru nodded while wincing slightly, ever the softy that he is. You don't plan to kill Mariabelle? I shrugged my shoulders. She could be useful, but I won't go out of my way to protect her either. I see. Do you have a way around anti-skill? I shook my head. Yeah, I do. Ecchi won't cause me any problems, so you don't need to worry about that. Rimuru nodded. Do you have a plan on how to avoid any blame being placed on either of us? They likely won't blame you or I immediately due to there being no proof, but they might think it, which could be problematic. It will be nearly right after the founding festival after all, there are bound to be some suspicions. I bet Raphael is the one that brought that topic to the forefront of Rimaru's mind. Rimaru usually isn't very politically knowledgeable. I'll just frame it as an unfortunate monster attack, or perhaps a demon attack. Perhaps I'll make it so that one of Mariabelle's guards summons a demon due to wanting revenge on Mariabelle for some random reason I can make up. That plan could backfire. Some could just say that we sent the monsters after Ecchi and Mariabelle, or that I ordered the demon to attack them, both things I am capable of. But then Luminous also offered to cover for me if I wanted her to. If the Western Holy Church declares something, most human kingdoms won't doubt a word of what they are saying. I'll have to fine-tune the attack a bit, but I'm leaning towards a random monster attack. It'll likely happen in Western nations' territory. Those humans are confident in their ability to detect any demon or demon lord that enters their territory, so they might just brush us off altogether due to their arrogance. The Western nations don't know the true terror true demon lords can bring to bear, thinking their measly detection barriers will alert them to our presence. Yeah, I think that is what I will do. I'll have Mariabelle call Ecchi to travel with her to a discreet location in the Western nations to talk about something. Ecchi will be wary, he always seems to be. But from what I understand he will still be fairly confident in his ability to escape, so he will still accept Mariabelle's request. It will take some time to get to a good location, probably a few days in fact. Travel by carriage is not very fast. Perhaps I will grab a dragon from the Cannot Mountains. I can place it under spiritual domination and have it stay in the area. I'll make sure to frame the scene so that it looks like the dragon ate Ecchi's corpse as I plan to finish him off with Beelzebub, but I can always use random monsters for that too. It's not like Ecchi was widely recognized to be as strong as he really is. They likely won't consider the possibility that I or Rimaru could be behind it, as if we were. Why would we allow the dragon or monsters, whatever I decide to use to stay in the area, allowing whatever night order that reaches the area first to have a way of tracking us down, at least a way of tracking us down in their eyes. In reality, if one of us wanted to hide our involvement, no night order would be capable of tracking us. Not to mention, Rimaru's so-called friendship with Ecchi is well known. Tempest and the Free Guild do have a healthy trading relationship after all. It is through the Free Guild that Tempest trades with the rest of the Western nations, with the Free Guild sort of acting as a buffer between the Western nations and Tempest, though that is bound to change after the festival. Many other kingdoms are aware of what Tempest has to offer now. RQA had even informed me that some nobles and royals had personally met her in order to secure a future meeting about some of the goods my kingdom sells. Rimaru nodded. I see. Well then please do tell me when you plan to do this ambush of yours. Yeah, sure. You should speed up your plan to join the Council of the West. After Ecchi is dealt with you may have a harder time trading with the rest of the Western nations, though that's unlikely with how interested some kingdoms seem to be in the goods you produce now. Rimaru nodded. Yeah, but I still want to be safe. I'm going to either have to ask to join or wait for an invitation. I can probably help you with that. I can have Mariabelle send back orders to allow you on to the Council of the West. I offered. Rimaru nodded. If you could do that, that would be great. Yeah, I can do that. Thanks, Felix. No problem, you owe me though. I'm expecting a 5-course meal. Haha, don't worry, I can do at least that much. I'll be waiting then. Rimaru nodded. Now that almost everything is taken care of, we just have to wait I guess. Sighed Rimaru. Yup, we need to wait until Luminous gathers everything needed for this ritual of hers. She is far too prideful to take either of our help so I didn't even bother offering. Rimaru nodded. Right, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, then after she has everything gathered, we can either place a ton of barriers around wherever we unseal her, or perhaps I can take us to another dimension. You're willing to tell Luminous about that? I nodded. Yeah, I do trust her, I know she won't tell anyone so I think it's fine. Rimaru shrugged his shoulders. Alright then, it's your call. I wish we could have dealt with Cagley, what a wasted opportunity. I sighed. Well she's in El Dorado, even if I want to deck Leon in the face, I know that a confrontation with him right now would not help at all. Said Rimaru. Yeah, you can't even go to the Free Guild headquarters to see if she's back, as that may alert Ecchi that something is up. It would be pretty suspicious if you just went to the Free Guild right after all this happened in Tempest, and that too without even alerting him. He would definitely know that something is up. In the end we will probably have to deal with Cagley after dealing with Ecchi, and there is a good chance she will be bunkered up by then. We do know where their bases are thanks to Laplace, so she shouldn't be difficult to deal with after Ecchi. I was in no rush thanks to that, since we knew where their bases were. I could just send one of my subordinates to kidnap her after Ecchi is dealt with. Of course that is under the assumption that Laplace knew the location of all the bases. If they aren't in any of the bases we know of we can figure something out later. In the end, Cagley isn't my main target. I shrugged my shoulders. At the very least, it isn't that big of a deal anyway. Cagley is pretty weak after all. I laughed out. You sound super arrogant right now, Felix. Well, I'm strong enough to be arrogant. Yeah, I wonder what Luminous is going to be doing with Laplace. Rimuru asked, his face twisting slightly as his imagination began to run wild. Laplace, huh? Well, I'm guessing she will use her newly acquired ultimate skill to hurt him a bit. That was me putting it lightly. Luminous could cause soul-level pain with just her unique skill, Lust. With Asmodeus she could do so much more. She could basically rewrite the soul entirely. It was a scary ability. Of course, I did not think Luminous would do that to Laplace. We did need him in one piece, after all. Laplace was relatively strong himself as well and may innately resist Luminous changes. He did have about 1 million existence points after all, higher than even what I had as a demon dupe. Well, higher than what I had before I consumed Footman. After consuming Footman I gained a fairly large boost in power. Though I expected no less from a true hero, and even then I'm fairly certain he was weakened from his transformation into a Daemon, so he should have been even stronger in his prime. Weakened as he was called, his sheer experience made him a fairly bothersome foe to fight. Falsifier and Seer made for a good combination. He could use Seer to look ahead and see if his falsifier would work, and if it didn't he would try something else and repeat the process until something stuck. All of a sudden I remembered something that Rimuru would need to take care of. Ah, by the way, I fought a group of otherworlders. I ended up sparing the ones with the locking curse. I froze them with some magic I had picked up in the past, but they are still alive if you want to free them from their curse. Rimuru's eyes widened. Seriously? That's great. I shrugged my shoulders. I knew they were being forced to attack me since I could afford to spare them and I didn't have a reason to kill them. I just froze them and placed a barrier around them to protect them from the fatal effects of my magic. Alright, where exactly are they? I'll have somebody go and pick them up and transfer them to a secure location and then I'll free them of their curse. I told Rimuru where they were, after which he sent off a quick thought communication. Rimuru and I continued to talk for a few minutes before I decided to check in on everyone. Alright, I'm going to go check on the others now. I told Rimuru. He nodded. I'll do the same. I snapped my fingers, removed the barrier around the room, and then teleported out. Cagley, she sighed as she finally left El Dorado through a warp portal that she had set up beforehand. She was followed by Tyr. She disliked dealing with Leon Cromwell. Thankfully she did not have to go into the guild for the next week. She had taken a leave of absence in order to finish up moving all the important things to the new base Ecchi had her establish. He thought it prudent to create a new base that Clayman had no idea about in case the Demon Lord Felix managed to gain some information from him. It was highly unlikely, or else all of their bases would have been ransacked by now, but Ecchi was not one to be careless. They had no idea if Clayman left the locations of their bases in some paper he left in Gistov after all. She planned to stay in hiding until Ecchi's return as well as Laplace's return. She knew there was a very low chance of something going wrong, but in case something happened her only protection was Tyr. While Tyr was strong, many were stronger. She would have preferred to have Laplace with her, but he had a mission of his own to accomplish, so Cagley did not fault him for his absence. She sighed as she took a seat on the couch. She could at least rest easy here. No one but her, Tyr and Ecchi should know the location of the space. She trusted Tyr with her life, so she did not need to worry about betrayal from her. She would have shared the information with Laplace, but Ecchi told her to wait until after the mission. Cagley knew why as well. Ecchi had considered the possibility that Laplace may be captured. They were playing at the big table now after all. With awakened demon lords one can never be too careful. She would apologize to Laplace for keeping this secret when she met him next. She knew he would forgive her, but it still made her feel guilty. Laplace should have finished his mission by now and should contact her soon once he felt he was safe enough. He would normally contact Ecchi as well, but Ecchi was unreachable currently due to being in Tempest. Ecchi did not want to take any risks about being caught with his pants down, as he said in Tempest, so he decided that Cagley would be responsible for coordinating with Laplace. And so Cagley would wait. I appeared in the home I had in Tempest. Master. My lord. Felix-sama. All of a sudden I found myself being greeted by everyone. I noticed Arcuaid was here as well as Mariabelle. I guess I didn't exactly tell Arcuaid where to take Mariabelle after showing her off, and she likely didn't want to bother me with a thought communication. I took a look around the room and verified that everybody was okay. Once that was done I greeted them. Hey everyone, sorry for not checking in with you all in person earlier. If you were busy, Felix-sama, then there is no need to apologize. Besides, it's not like those weaklings could cause us any trouble. I'm sure basically no one had a chance against Siko when she has her bullshit skill. She is even able to create an anti-magic area but use her skill so that it doesn't target her, giving her full access to all of her abilities while practically crippling her enemies. Cook is scary. I also noticed multiple people nodding their heads to Siko's proclamation. Well, thanks for understanding then. I continued to talk with everyone for a few hours before deciding to turn in for the night. I don't need sleep, but I sure as hell enjoy it. I ended up storing Mariabelle back in my infinity space for safekeeping. She had already played her part for the most part, she just had one more thing I needed her to do. Tomorrow was probably going to be annoying. I'll join Rimuru in his meeting with Elmgia and Gazel as well as some other allies. Of course I don't have to, but why not help a friend out when I can? As I was laying in bed I decided to ask Odin about the influx of souls I had received throughout the night. Notice. The souls the master received are from his subordinates. As they collect souls, those souls are automatically transferred to the master. Ah, that's right, that was the reason that those who are subordinates can't ascend into true demon lords. Whenever they get a soul they immediately lose it. The master has approximately 4,853 souls stored in infinity space. What? How do I have that many? There sure as hell weren't that many attackers. Due to some souls being far more powerful, Odin was able to approximate how many regular human souls there were. Ah, I see. Some of them were enlightened, and so they had stronger souls, and so each individual soul of theirs was worth more. So harvest festivals work based on the total energy collected rather than the number of souls then? Correct. I see, the issue is that you do still need souls for the harvest festival, as souls contain the needed energy, it's just that you may need less souls if you claim the souls of stronger beings. Theoretically one could have a harvest festival using a single soul. They just need to use an extremely powerful soul. Good to know. Before I fell asleep my thoughts wandered in another direction, to my alternate selves. I truly wonder what lives they had lived. Luminous had said that they were different but also the same, at least according to Chloe, and while Luminous had shared what she knew about my alternates, she didn't know all that much herself. Chloe and Hinata were fairly tight-lipped about that, not that I could blame them. I wonder what my other self got up to in the Cardinal world. He was around for years longer than I have been at this point. It would be pretty interesting to hear about my alternate's adventures. I'd have to ask Hinata to share some stories with me when she is back. And with that, I decided to sleep. I knocked on the door to my newest subordinate's room. Come in. I opened the door and was met with Sasha, who was fixing up her hair with little to no success. It seems she was forever doomed to have messy hair. Ah. Lord Felix. I nodded to her. Sasha. I apologize for the mess. Hearing her I took a good look around the room. The bedsheets were messy, the blanket was on the floor, and one pillow was across the room. Sasha's cheeks were glowing redder and redder the more I looked. I sighed in exasperation. It's fine, Sasha, that's what maids are for after all. Though Raiden likely wasn't going to be the one to clean this up unless I directly ordered her to. She was more my personal maid that saw to my personal needs rather than doing general cleaning and such. She trained other maids for that more basic stuff. Of course I didn't need her all day, and so she did have a fairly large amount of free time. I snapped my fingers and quickly cleaned the room using various magics. It required next to no effort for me, so why not help out? Ah. You did not need to do that, Lord Felix. I waved Sasha off. It's fine. For some reason, I heard her whispering about how Arcuaid was going to have her soul. Weird, I must have misheard. I was just coming to check in on you. I assume you've met the rest of my subordinates, right? Sasha nodded. Yes, Miss Arcuaid introduced me to, in her own words, everyone who matters, and then also gave me a rundown of what my role will be. I nodded. Good, I'll bring your mansions to my territory after some time. I have some things to sort out here. Sasha nodded. Thanks. It's still hard to believe that you can just teleport my mansion. I shrugged my shoulders. If you can't believe it, then I'm sure you'll grow even more surprised over time. Sasha rubbed her hands together. Excellent. Well then, if you need anything today, just talk to Arcuaid. For some reason when I mentioned Arcuaid, Sasha seemed to get nervous. Weird. But she nodded nonetheless. Okay, thank you, Lord Felix. I nodded and left the room. Rimuru had informed me that the meeting with Gazel, Elmgia, and Yum would be in a couple of hours. It would be just us. Gazel, Elmgia, and Yum will not be bringing any guards or anything like that. It's probably best that way. The things that will be discussed are best kept secret. Rimuru had said that he invited Luminous, but she rejected, saying she wished to remain in Ruberius, and holding the meeting there likely wouldn't go very well with the others. My next stop was to the room I allowed Rain to use. I didn't bother knocking this time and just walked in. I wasn't all that surprised to find Rain laying down on the bed lazily. She immediately noticed my presence and jumped slightly. Lord Felix. What are you doing here? Said Rain as she hurriedly fixed her outfit and stood up straight. It seemed she was going to act like I didn't see her being a complete sloth, something I was fine with. I was coming to check in with you. When do you plan to return to the ice continent? Rain shrugged her shoulders. In a few hours or so. Why? I was just asking. I wanted to thank you for your help last night. She didn't greet me like the rest of my subordinates last night. I'm not sure what she was up to at that time and I don't really care either. It's no problem, Lord Felix, but please do visit Lord Guy sometime. Please. Pleaded Rain. Man, she really hates working, huh? Alright, I already agreed to that, but I'll visit Guy sometime soon. Rain gave me a happy smile as she thrust her arm up. Victory. You are a horrible maid. I sighed out. Rain looked at me with shock written on her face. What? How could you say that? I sighed once again and didn't bother to respond as I left the room. I heard Rain yell from her room but she did not follow me thankfully. I really feel bad for Guy. I don't think I could handle dealing with Rain on a daily basis. He really cursed himself by accepting her as a subordinate. Uselessness aside, she was still strong. A primordial demon duke was a force to be feared for the majority of the world. Only the extraordinary could afford to brush her off. As she was, she could likely deal with multiple saints at once as long as they had no ultimate skills. Now I have 2 more things to do, to fulfill the promise I made to Rimuru. I went back to my room and summoned Mariabelle from my infinity space. Mariabelle. She nodded. Lord Felix. She was still in her state of absolute obedience, but she kept her general personality as well as intelligence. She wasn't a hopeless doll like I made Laplace, as I had to take extreme measures for Laplace or he may have been able to resist my questioning or even feed me false information. Sometimes wrong information can be more deadly than no information at all. Mariabelle can attest to that with her failed plan for controlling me, a plan that was entirely based around false information. Mariabelle just wasn't capable of resisting me. She was basically the same person as she always was. She still had her desires and her dreams, it's just that I took priority over all of that. Spiritual domination is seriously an NTR bastard skill. Is it possible for you to get an invitation to the Council of the West sent to Tempest? I didn't bother asking for one to be sent to my territory. I didn't really care to build closer ties to the West after all. I had already inherited all of Clayman's trading relationships. Numerous of them had been with nations in the West that Arcuaid was managing. I was fine with leaving it at that. Not to mention I am expecting more nations to reach out after trying the alcohol served at the festival since it was sourced from Azeroth. If there is one thing that nobles love, it's luxury. Mariabelle nodded in response to my question. Indeed, it is easily doable. Would you like for me to send word to do so now? I nodded. Yes. Mariabelle nodded. Very well. Would it be possible to meet my guards and my attendant who accompanied me? They have the means of sending a message out. Indeed, while Mariabelle's main guard was the adventurer Gay, she didn't come with just him. She had someone to drive her carriage as well as some extra guards and an attendant to take care of all of her needs. Apparently Arcuaid had Mariabelle notify her cohorts that she would be staying with me in order to build a closer alliance. And since these were people in affiliation with the Rosso, they knew far more than most about the inner workings of the Western nations, and so they saw no reason to be suspicious. They likely thought that Mariabelle had some blackmail over me and was extorting me, something I didn't mind. And it's not like Mariabelle was going to try and escape from my grasp. She might as well be considered my creature. She couldn't even think of such a thing. I'd feel super put off about doing this to a child. Thankfully Mariabelle is no child. Yes, I'll have someone escort you to your group. I could trust Raiden to follow my orders and not to stir up trouble. I have a feeling that if I sent Sicko things would not go nearly as smoothly. Mariabelle bowed. Thank you, Lord Felix. Raiden, are you busy? Master, no, I am your personal maid. I am always available to fulfill your orders. Responded Raiden. Great, then can you escort Mariabelle to her group? I need her to do something for me. As you wish, Master. Do you wish for me to go now? Asked Raiden. If possible, yes. Mariabelle is with me so you can come to me and pick her up. Very well. Moments after Raiden agreed, she appeared in front of me and bowed. Master. I nodded. Raiden. I then pointed at Mariabelle. That's the girl I want you to escort. Raiden looked at Mariabelle and nodded. Mariabelle, follow Raiden's orders, got it? As you wish, Lord Felix. She responded. Alright, I'll see you later, Raiden. Raiden nodded and then disappeared in a burst of lightning, taking Mariabelle along with her. I'd normally be worried about Mariabelle surviving traveling with Raiden, but I noticed Raiden placing a multi-layer barrier on Mariabelle just before leaving, which will protect Mariabelle from the worst of the effects of traveling at such high speeds with a normal squishy human body. With that done, I snapped my fingers and teleported to Milim's residence in Tempest. Ah, I was not expecting you, Felix. Said Frey. For the duration of the festival, all of Milim's subordinates that attended decided to stay in her home, So that was Frey, Midrayi, and Dark. I gave a nod to Frey. Frey. Is Milim here? She nodded. Yes, she is lazing about in her room. Of course she is. Anyways, see you later. I waved Frey off as I made my way towards Milim's room. I didn't bother knocking and just entered her room and was met with the sight of Milim laying on her bed with her feet hung in the air, waving about. A well-known position that signifies that you have nothing to do. Milim immediately stood up when I entered. Ah. Felix. Hey, Milim. She gave me a pout. I was waiting for you, you know. Sorry about that. Things came up. Humphrey. Fine, but you owe me candy. I nodded. Sure, I'll give you some when we return to our territories. Hearing me, a happy smile came to Milim's face. Really? Awesome. Have you just been in your room all day, doing nothing? Milim nodded. Yup. After the attack, I didn't want to bug you or Rimuru, so I've just been hanging around. That's thoughtful, thanks Milim. But feel free to drop by at my place, I always have time for my bestie after all. I declared. Milim's eyes began to shine. Really? Great. Anyways, I stopped by to give you this. I said as I took out Gaia's egg from my infinity space. Milim's gaze zeroed in on the egg as she carefully took it out of my hand and cradled it to her chest. When do you think it will hatch? She asked. I shrugged my shoulders. No clue. It shouldn't be too long, though, you should probably just keep it with you. Milim nodded. Thank you, Felix. It's no problem, Milim. I hung out with Milim for a little bit before returning to my home. Now, I had some time to kill until the meeting. I wanted to distress a bit, and I knew just what I wanted to do, or more specifically, who I wanted to do. I walked forward and appeared in my favorite masochist's room by connecting the two spaces so that when I walked forward, I walked into the space that Lalaitina's room occupied. Spatial manipulation can be a ton of fun. Master! Exclaimed Lalaitina. She already had a heavy blush on her face. Are you here to use me? I smirked at her question. Indeed, so strip. She immediately complied, and I took a good look at her voluptuous body. I truly love my life. I slapped Lalaitina's panty-clad ass, causing her to moan slightly as I rose up off the bed. I killed a good few hours with Lalaitina, the meeting should be starting any time now. Alright, I'm off, Lalaitina. Tell the others that I'll be back later. I already told them of the meeting, but having Lalaitina let them know I have left doesn't hurt. Yes, master. I snapped my fingers, quickly cleaning myself and getting rid of any sort of scent that lingered, and then summoned some clothing from my infinity space onto my body. A white collared shirt with black pants, simple but comfortable while also not super casual. I teleported myself to the place where the meeting would take place. It was ironically where Rimuru, Luminous, and I spoke yesterday. Rimuru was already there waiting, as was Elmgia and Gazelle. It seemed Yum had not arrived yet. Ah, Felix. Greeted Rimuru. I nodded to him. Sup, Rimuru. I then turned to Elmgia and Gazelle. Hello, you two. Gazelle greeted me first with a nod. Lord Felix. Haha, no need to call me Lord Felix. You can just call me by my name. Gazelle nodded. Felix, then. Elmgia then greeted me. Hello Felix, I'm not surprised that you don't seem to have any injuries after last night. I heard you took on the Chaos Dragon. How'd she know that? I looked at Rimuru discreetly. He looked back at me sheepishly, so he spilled the beans on that, then, huh? I did with Milim's help, yes. I see. On behalf of Sorcerer's Dynasty Sarian, I sincerely thank you. Should you wish to visit Sarian or meet me at any time, you will be given the highest priority. Said Elmgia. Ah, right, she would be grateful for that, huh? Seeing as the Chaos Dragon, in her view, was likely responsible for her father's death, and it basically was. Not to mention it destroyed the original Elven nation and crippled their numbers. I'm fairly certain the only reason Elmgia became Empress was to take responsibility for the Elven race and keep them under control. She doesn't seem to be the type that vies for power. Hell, Sylvia might have pushed her to do it, seeing what happened to the old Elven king. Perhaps she didn't feel like she could trust the next Elven ruler to properly guide the elves. In that case, who better to rule over the elves than her daughter? I noticed that Gazelle was looking at Elmgia wide-eyed. Was she offering something special or something? I looked at Gazelle curiously, as if sensing my gaze. He elaborated. Even I have to wait up to 6 months to meet you, Empress Elmgia. Elmgia looked at Gazelle haughtily. And? That shut Gazelle right up. Damn, that's cold. I see. Well, thanks for that then. Elmgia shook her head. It is no problem. I would not be surprised if even my mother wished to meet you for your achievement. The Chaos Dragon is an enemy the elves have always been fearful of due to its past deeds. I am sure having it taken care of will bring my mother some closure as well as reducing the fears of the common populace once it is known that the Chaos Dragon was in fact not dead as it was believed. Sylvia, huh? I wouldn't be opposed to a meeting with her. In fact, after this meeting, I'm sure she will want to meet Rimuru and me even more. Hearing me, Elmgia looked at me curiously. Oh? We'll talk about it later. I responded. Elmgia nodded. Very well. Ah, by the way, did you manage to free those other worlders I froze Rimuru? Rimuru nodded. Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you about that. Apparently all of them seemed to be very thankful to you and wanted to serve you. They even asked me in their own words to try and convince you to grant them the privilege of becoming your subordinates. Huh, well, I didn't expect that. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that they'd even want to become my subordinates. They saw my brutality when I dealt with those who were not under the locking curse. I literally blew someone up with infinity, and sent another to outer space, along with a multitude of other things. I don't really regret any of what I did. They attacked willingly, plus I got to enjoy myself a little bit and experiment with some of my abilities. I don't get many chances to use half of my fun abilities in combat since they won't really work on stronger opponents. And above all, I am now a demon, my nature might as well match that at this point. I'm not one to cling to my humanity like Rimuru. I practically embraced my demonhood and all the advantages it came with. I just make sure not to go overboard. After all, being non-human doesn't make you bad or evil, even being a demon doesn't classify you as evil. Ingvild shows that, and even I don't see myself as evil. Hell, the angels, the so-called good guys in most myths are well known as the bad guys in this world. Felix? Ah, right, I forgot to answer Rimuru's question. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Can you send them to Arcuide later? I'll have her take care of everything. I'll never say no to more subordinates as long as they can be trusted and aren't a pain to deal with. Rimuru nodded. Yeah, sure. I'd rather not send my new subordinates to my territory until they are vetted by Arcuade, so I'll have to find some room for them. I can always ask Rimuru for more houses, but I already have a solution to that problem. Extending the space available within a room is child's play to me, so I can just turn a single room into a room that can house as many people as necessary. Hell, I could make the interior of a tiny broom closet as large as an entire mansion if I wanted to. Spatial manipulation is handy like that. It didn't take long for Yum to arrive. Once he did, Shuna quickly served us tea and then left the room. Once everyone was seated, Rimuru spoke first. First of all, I would like to thank everybody here for their help in dealing with last night's terrorist attack, said Rimuru as he bowed. There is no need to bow, Rimuru, we just did what was expected of us as allies. Normally we ourselves wouldn't be here to assist, but since we were attending as guests, we were able to lend more assistance than normal, said Elmgia. Gazel nodded. Indeed, you have done good work here, Rimuru. It would be a shame to see it all go up in flames due to the greed of the few. Hey, greed. Gazel has no clue just how accurate what he said was. Yum chuckled lightly. Well, I wasn't able to do much like the rest of you, but I hope Razan was still able to lend a hand here and there. Rimuru nodded. It is fine, Yum. Razan was more than useful. With the thanks done, Rimuru took his seat. Are you aware of who was behind the attack? Asked Gazel. Rimuru nodded. We are, and we have already dealt with the attackers or will soon deal with them. Elmgia tilted her head. Oh? May we know who was responsible for this attack? She asked. I can tell you it was someone from the west. More information will have to wait until everything is dealt with, unfortunately. Elmgia and Gazel both nodded. Very well, that is fine. I assume it was that pesky Council of the West, said Elmgia. Rimuru kept his excellent poker face and didn't respond, but from the look on Elmgia's face, she knew she hit the mark. Did you need some food and supplies, boss? Asked Yum. Rimuru shook his head. No. Our supplies weren't hit too badly since we already had men stationed there, so we are not in need of much assistance there. But thank you for the offer, Yum. The orcs should have already gotten to work on repairing the damage caused to Rimuru City. Rimuru said the last part while glaring in my direction. I did cause a ton of destruction during my battle with those other worlders for fun using that spatial construct. I remember I destroyed a couple of buildings, but hey, the orcs can fix it. Yum nodded. Very well then. I decided to take a sip of my tea. I tilted it completely horizontally so I could drink from the straw. Normally the tea would have spilled already due to the way I was holding it, but thanks to spatial manipulation it just stayed in place. I noticed Rimuru, Elmgia, Gazel, and Yum all staring at me. Seriously? Said Rimuru. I was not expecting for one to use an ultimate power for mere trivialities like that, said Elmgia. Ultimate power, huh? She's bringing it up now? It isn't that surprising that she picked up on my use of Ouroboros. She has an ultimate skill herself, so she could probably feel the way that space behaved differently around me. I directly manipulate the laws governing the concept of space, whereas magic has to manipulate space manually. I can just basically tell it what to do, and it will do it. I can bend the laws of space over my knee and spank it. I would not have referred to it as the ultimate power, but that is still incredibly impressive, Felix. Even my court mages would struggle to do such a thing with the casual ease you had displayed. While they do not specialize in spatial magic, that is still incredible," said Gazel, who had door written all over his face. Seriously, this was enough to impress him? Some lousy-ass court mages then. Though perhaps my standards are getting too high? All of a sudden, Gazel's eyes widened. Ultimate power? That is how you referred to it as Empress Elmgia. Could it be? Elmgia nodded with a satisfied smile. I did not think that you would be aware of such a thing, but it is true, right Felix? I nodded. Yeah, I have an ultimate skill. I saw no reason to hide such a fact, just knowing I had it, did nothing. They had no idea about my skill's exact abilities or anything that could expose a potential weakness. An ultimate skill? Yelled Gazel, while Yom just looked clueless. Pardon me, but what exactly is an ultimate skill? Asked Yom. Before Rimuru could answer, I cut him off. Basically, the laws of the world were established at the beginning of creation. Certain people have some authority over these laws of creation. This authority is basically what an ultimate skill is. It gives you the power to directly manipulate the laws of creation and bend them to your will. No anti-magic area or anything similar can block these effects. Is that not what magic does? Asked Yum. I shrugged my shoulders. Sorta, while magic can lightly manipulate the laws of creation by interfering with them using magicules, you just generally won't reach the same level of ability as an ultimate skill through sheer magic alone. You would need to manually understand whatever law you are trying to manipulate, and to manipulate on the level of an ultimate skill is practically impossible. I see, thank you, Lord Felix. Yom said with a thoughtful look on his face. So it's impossible, huh? I recall reading records of my grandfather, the true ancestor of the dwarves, that explained a bit about ultimate skills. He claimed to have had one. Muttered Gazel. Well, I didn't know that. The true ancestor of the dwarves had an ultimate skill, huh? I wonder how Luminous would feel about that. I didn't say it was completely impossible, just extremely difficult. I myself know a few arts and magics that are capable of being used on the ultimate level. Time stop, distortion field, dimension fault, melt slash, and the various secret arts I know would all qualify. Gazel nodded. I hope you do not mind me asking, but how does one acquire an ultimate skill? When a unique skill is taken beyond the limit, it can become an ultimate skill, though that is under the condition that one has a powerful enough soul to house an ultimate skill. There is no surefire way to acquire an ultimate skill. It all depends on the person. Gazel nodded. I see, thank you, Felix. It's no problem. I did enjoy teaching others, which is something I found out when teaching Hinata. If I continue to grow in swordsmanship, is it possible to defeat someone with an ultimate skill? Asked Gazel. Yeah, it is. It will be incredibly difficult, but in the end, it all depends on willpower. However, it is also theoretically possible to be as effective as an ultimate skill as a spiritual life form as long as you use enough energy. Then there are things that can help you in such a fight, like becoming a complete saint, or acquiring god-grade equipment. Gazel laughed lightly at my words. Not many can afford to speak of such equipment so casually, Felix. My own blade is one passed down in the royal family and is classified as legend grade. Then perhaps it will evolve at some point then. Gazel nodded. I turned to Elmgia, who had brought up the topic. I'm surprised you brought up ultimate skills. I would have thought you'd want to keep it a secret, keep one trump card to yourself. I wasn't going to let Elmgia get out of this unscathed, since she basically told Gazel I had an ultimate skill. I'll do the same. Even you, Empress Elmgia? Yelled Gazel. Humphrey. My mother, Silva Elru, acquired her own ultimate skill long ago and informed me about them. After that, I began seeking the ultimate power and eventually developed my own. Responded Elmgia. Hey, I wonder how Luminous would feel if she knew that even Sylvia and Elmgia got an ultimate skill before her. She'd probably be annoyed. I see, and she isn't going to be upset that you shared that knowledge? While I appreciate you looking out for me, Felix, it is unneeded. In alliances like these one should share just as much information as they are receiving. She said. Alright, suit yourself. I'll have to try to get Elmgia to use her ultimate skill in front of me at some point. We all continued to talk about various topics, such as rebuilding Tempest, improving trade relationships, and all the other things that came with kingdom management. I really should have had Dark Uaid come instead of me. Chapter 120, Nudes. The conversation flowed easily as they discussed various matters concerning the rebuilding of Tempest, improving trade relationships, and all the other things that came with kingdom management. I really should have had Dark Uaid come instead of me. Ghazal, sensing the natural break in the conversation, leaned back slightly in his chair. Now, I must return and go check on my cohorts, Ghazal announced, taking a final swig of his drink before standing up. Rimuru nodded, offering a warm smile as Ghazal began to leave. That's fine, thanks for attending, Ghazal. Yum soon followed behind. Alright, see you guys. I can tell when I'm being a third, or rather fourth wheel. Rimuru nervously laughed, scratching the back of his head. Ah, sorry about that, Yum. Yum waved him off. It's fine. I can tell you three have something important to talk about, Yum said as he left, leaving just Rimuru, Elmjia, and me in the room. Elmjia clasped her hands together. Now, what did you two wish to speak about? Rimuru decided to start everything off. After the attack, we were able to apprehend one of the people responsible. Oh? Good for you. I assume you are going somewhere with this, commented Elmjia. Rimuru nodded. He was a Deathman. Deathmen are beings born from a dark magic that involves merging thousands of bodies together with the strongest ego taking control. Elmjia nodded. Indeed, I am somewhat aware of that. The Deathman that was apprehended was powerful, going by the existence points he was over 1 million. That got Elmjia interested. That is incredibly powerful, not just anybody would have access to such a resource. Rimuru nodded. Indeed. Sensing that Rimuru was going to dance around the issue as long as he could, I decided to step in and break the news. The Deathman was named Laplace. He used to be your father. I interrupted. Felix. We were supposed to do it subtly. What do you mean? Elmjia's cold voice rang out. I shrugged my shoulders. I mean what I said. The Deathman that I apprehended was formerly known as Sarian, the true hero of the elves. Elmjia sighed and took a deep breath, something odd as she didn't need to breathe. She let out the breath slowly, a sign of the effort she was putting to maintain her composure. Please explain things from the beginning. I nodded and elaborated. When Sarian went off to fight off the Chaos Dragon, he was grievously injured and was found by the demon lord Kazlim. Kazlim? Asked Elmjia. Yup, he was also a Deathman and has a story of his own, but that doesn't matter right now. Kazlim found a dying Sarian and offered to bring him back to life as his servant, though he warned him that he would lose his memories. Sarian went through with it anyways, being reborn as the Wonder Pirate, loyal to demon lord Kazlim. Elmjia kept a composed face, but I could tell her emotions were raging within her. I see. I hope you understand that I wish to meet him for myself and decide what to do. I do not doubt that the words you speak are what you believe to be true. You have nothing to gain by deceiving me about something like this, but I do still wish to see him. I looked at Rimuru and we both nodded. Yeah, sure, that was the plan anyway. The one thing you should know is that it will be practically impossible to recover his memories with our current means. His soul was practically wiped clean. Elmjia nodded. Should I decide to pursue this matter deeper, I shall inform my mother and we shall come here and negotiate for custody over him. I am not one to demand his return when he is responsible for crimes against Tempest. Huh, well, who knew that Elmjia would be reasonable about it? I wouldn't have blamed her for demanding her father back or something. As far as I know, she never had the chance to know her father. It would make sense if she wanted to meet and see him and try and save him herself. My eyes met Rimuru's. I quickly sent a thought communication. Why don't we wait to hand over Laplace? A meeting with Sylvia Elru would be extremely beneficial. We can keep looking for cures to his memory issue on our side as well. That. Fine. It would benefit Tempest to establish a deeper alliance with Sarian. Meeting the Queen Mother would be helpful. Rimuru agreed, though he sounded reluctant. He seriously wasn't built for this whole political thing. So what if Laplace was Elmjia's father? I could empathize with her, but if Rimuru has an advantage he should use it, especially when Elmjia was willingly offering the advantage. If she wanted Laplace back, then oh well, as agreed upon earlier, we would give him to Sorcerer's Dynasty Sarian as a gift. If I were into this whole kingdom building thing Rimuru is doing, I sure as hell would have used that to my advantage, but I'm not, so why not help Rimuru out with his kingdom building? He can do all the work while I reap the benefits, like good food. Well, Felix was the one who actually caught Laplace. Mentioned Rimuru. I shrugged my shoulders. I'm fine with a meeting with Sylvia. It would be interesting to see what knowledge she has locked up in that head of hers. The ancestor of the elves is surely a magical genius. Elmjia nodded. My mother had taught even Leon Cromwell. Should you wish for it, I am sure she would not be opposed to trading knowledge with a demon lord such as yourself, Felix. I nodded. That's great. And you said she has an ultimate skill too. I'm sure she will be quite interesting then. Not just anyone can acquire an ultimate skill. Even I had a bit of a shortcut to getting my own ultimate skills with Odin helping push things along, and before Odin it was Cursed Sage. So Sylvia, Luminous, Elmgia, and all these other beings getting their own without an eye basically facilitating the process is impressive. Still, in my opinion, if you aren't cheating you aren't trying. And I sure as hell am cheating, and I'm going to continue to cheat. I'll go pick up Laplace, I'll be back soon. I told the duo. Once they both nodded I teleported to Luminous Inner Sanctum, which was not in Night Garden, so not the same place Granoa was sealed. Luminous's Inner Sanctum was located on a mountain deep in her territory. I tore through all the defensive barriers Luminous had placed over her Inner Sanctum, to prevent exactly what I was doing, someone teleporting into her center of power. Of course those barriers couldn't hope to keep me away, but they were incredibly strong. I wouldn't have been able to tear through them before my Harvest Festival. Odin would have needed to analyze and dismantle them, which says enough about how powerful these barriers are. I appeared in the meeting room that we had used last night. I noticed everything was perfectly cleaned up. We did leave a bit of a mess when leaving. I exited the meeting room and made my way to where I sensed Luminous and Laplace. From what I was sensing, Luminous was currently inflicting soul-deep pain on Laplace. Not fun. He deserved it though. Dickhead. I didn't bother concealing my aura, and so Luminous should have noticed my presence the moment I popped in. That's likely why guards weren't swarming me currently. She probably ordered them not to. Gunter, Luminous Butler appeared before me and gave a shallow bow. Lord Felix. My lady was not aware that you would be coming to collect her prisoner so soon. I nodded. Yeah, Elmgia just wants to take a look at Laplace before deciding what to do. Gunter nodded. Very well, my lady has said that she will be with you in a moment. While you wait, would you like tea and biscuits? I nodded. Yeah, sure. Those biscuits I tried last time were good. Gunter's expression didn't change, but there was a subtle note of pride in his voice as he replied. Thank you for the compliment, Lord Felix. It's no problem. Gunter led me to the lounge where he served me the promised tea and biscuits. I took a bite of the biscuit and simply enjoyed it in silence. That butler knew how to make a damn good biscuit. I bet Raiden could do better, but that wasn't surprising. My maid was the best. As I was eating, I spotted Luminous making her way over. Had your fill of Laplace? Luminous scoffed. Of course not. I don't know why I expected a different answer. I hope he is still sane? Luminous' eyes narrowed, yet she nodded nonetheless. Of course. To cause insanity in a spiritual life form is no easy feat. I would need to intentionally wish for such a thing. I know, but I was just making sure. Luminous took a seat across from me and grabbed a biscuit that was set on the plate. Hey. I was going to eat that. Luminous looked at me with a smirk. I know. Bitch. I whispered. What was that? Asked Luminous, feigning ignorance. I sighed. Nothing, nothing. Feel free to help yourself to my biscuits. Humphrey. That's what I thought. She replied with a satisfied nod. My eye twitched. Oh, now you are going there? Going where? Teased Luminous, who had an infuriating smirk. One of these days I'm going to take you over my knee and spank you, I swear it. Luminous's confident facade cracked for just a moment, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. Spank me. How dare you? I am a fellow demon lord, show me some respect. Hey, Luminous is strong on the offense but weak on the defense. After all, who would dare to tease a demon lord and a true ancestor? Only a madman. I'm sure Luminous is usually on my side of the fence, teasing others while looking for reactions. Hey, they stop being a brat. Brats get punished with spanks. Even rookies knew that. Luminous is more of a hag than a brat. Maybe she is a combination of the two. Perhaps she is a brat? A brag? A hag rat. I am no brat. Yeehaw. I shot back, my grin causing her to get more annoyed and flustered. No, I am not. She insisted, her tone growing more defensive. Yeehaw. Stop that. Nua. Felix, I swear I will torture your soul for eternity. Huh. She always goes there, doesn't she? Torture my soul for eternity, yeah right. Cough cough, Lady Luminous. Called out Gunter. All of a sudden Luminous froze and mechanically turned to Gunter. Gunter. Hey, she was distracted by our little argument. She probably didn't sense Gunter coming in with Laplace. Yes, my lady? I will be erasing your memory after this. Gunter nodded as if all was right in the world. As you wish, my lady. I personally didn't agree with doing that to one's allies due to my personal views, but everyone has different views. It wouldn't surprise me if memory erasure was something minor for most of the beings in this world. My mindset was still stained with some of the things I felt back when I was just a human, and I was completely fine with that. That portion of my life made me who I am today. Laplace was right behind Gunter, Completely sealed with holy magic preventing all movement, he glared at me in hatred, a glare I found easy to ignore. Well, Rimuru and Elmgia are probably waiting for me. I guess I'll spank you next time. There will be no spanking, Felix. You can deny it all you want, but the amount of brat energy you were just releasing was off the charts. The inner brat in you craves for it, I know it. I teased as I walked up to Laplace and placed my hand on his shoulder. We are not done here, Felix. Don't you dare. Before Luminous could finish her sentence, I teleported back to the meeting room in Tempest. Ah, that was fun. Messing with Luminous truly is one of my most enjoyable hobbies. Though I did mean what I said, I am not afraid to spank the lewd vampire. It doesn't hurt that Luminous is hot as hell. I would never say no to tapping that, no sane man would. Who cares that she's probably an unstable true ancestor? Some insanity in a woman makes them hotter. Everyone knows that. Apostrophe. I ignored Odin as Rimuru and Elmgia's gaze snapped to me, while Elmgia's gaze was focused on the bound Laplace. Luminous seriously knew her holy magic. I wasn't even aware a spell like this existed. Laplace was bound in spiritron-laced ropes that sealed off all of his magic as well as his recovering magic circuits, leaving him helpless. He couldn't resist me if he wanted to anyway. He was still bound by my spiritual domination after all. I just left the chains on him incredibly loose. Welp, this here is Laplace, I said, gesturing to the clown. Now, why don't you introduce yourself? I asked, not using my power over him to force him to do so. I was curious whether he would do it of his own initiative. I really hate ya, you know. But fine, I know when I'm beaten. Hello there, Empress, the name's Laplace, I am the Wonder Pirate. Elmgia stood up and walked towards Laplace. Is it possible to remove his mask? She asked. Yeah, here, I said as I removed the mask from Laplace's face. Laplace had pointed elven ears, his red hair cascading down the side of his head. Father, muttered Elmgia, taking a step back in disbelief. So his looks really haven't changed then, huh? Hearing Elmgia, Laplace sighed. Father Empress, I would have thought that the demon lord here would have explained that. Laplace said while gesturing towards me. Elmgia shook her head, as if trying to escape her thoughts. Indeed he did. However, you do look just like the images of my father I have seen. Hey, well, ain't that something? Laplace responded sarcastically. I could tell he was trying to be nonchalant about meeting his technical daughter. Even if he didn't associate himself as Sarian, it still must be entirely different to intellectually know you had a daughter, than to actually meet said daughter. Very well, I will inform my mother about this and we will come together and make a decision. Though do know that it may take up to 6 months. 6 months? How come that long? Asked Rimuru. My mother is often not in one place, she is traveling throughout Sarian's territory, never staying in one place for long, so it can be difficult to contact her. Responded Elmgia. Alright then, that's fine, said Rimuru. You can take Laplace with you if you want, I offered. Elmgia shook her head. While I do wish to do so, I fear that I may get distracted with my duties knowing of him being nearby. Being away from him will give me time to do some research of my own to recover his memories. I shrugged my shoulders. Suit yourself. You're wasting your time, Empress. Your father is gone, all that remains is me. Elmgia glared at Laplace. That is for me to decide. He shrugged his shoulders helplessly. I turned to Laplace and tapped him in the back of his head, taking his consciousness away from him. I'll be keeping him in a coma for now, I told the two. I'll probably end up sending him back to Luminous while asking her to go easier on the guy. I'm sure he has been tortured to hell and back already. Though I can understand why Luminous felt the need to do so. Elmgia and Rimuru both nodded. Will you be taking him back now? Asked Rimuru. I shook my head. No, Lumi, his caretaker is likely pretty annoyed with me right now. Visiting her so soon is bound to be entertaining, but I would like to keep my arms attached to my body. I nervously chucked. Of course, Luminous couldn't hope to dismember me, but whatever excuse works. I'll probably just have Lalitina or someone take him back once she calms down. Rimuru rolled his eyes. Of course. Elmgia, while curious about who we were talking about, didn't inquire about it. I stored Laplace in my infinity space as we took our seats and resumed our conversation, a conversation that soon turned into a game session. Elmgia was taking the whole "whoa, my father is alive" thing really well. I guess with age comes wisdom, and Elmgia is old as hell. She's another hidden hag. If only she was more of a brat, she could join Luminous on the Ragdag Brat Hag gang. Though the name was still a work in progress. After the heavy topics about long-gone fathers, we ended up just hanging out as friends. We ended up playing various games throughout the hours, you know, Monopoly, Blackjack, Go Fish, and even Cards Against Humanity. Elmgia especially enjoyed Cards Against Humanity. We ended up talking about basic stuff, how things were going in our territories and stuff like that. By the time we ended up separating, it was already dark outside. The festival will officially be closing off tomorrow, which is when Ecchi will be leaving. It will be easy to get into the Western nation's territory. The defenses they have established work based off of sensing a being Zora. Since I can completely conceal mine, they would have no hope of detecting me. I looked up to the shining moon in the night sky. Soon I'll have Ecchi's soul in my possession, then that will be one chapter of my life closed. I made my way out of the Chancellor's office. As I was walking down the streets of Tempest, I felt the cool breeze brush against my face, all kinds of Majin walking around, going about their business. There were housewives doing some last-minute groceries, and men coming home from a long day of work. It was pretty astonishing how similar the environment of Tempest had become to that of modern-day Earth. Rimuru had done some good work here. I noticed a soccer ball coming my way. I quickly caught it and noticed some kids running up to me. The kids were of different races. One was a goblin, another an ogre, another a lycanthrope. All these different races were living in harmony playing games. I placed the soccer ball on the floor and juggled it a bit, amusing myself with the kids' oohs and ahs before kicking it back in the kids' direction and moving on. Sometimes relaxing like this was nice. I noticed Veldora's takoyaki stand a distance away and made my way to it. He of course was disguised using magic so nobody would recognize him. It was rather amusing to think of how many people Veldora had served takoyaki, each unaware that they were eating food made by a true dragon of all beings. I stood at the back of the line and waved off the customers in front of me who recognized me and offered me their spots. Perhaps I should have disguised myself, seeing as quite a few of these people are humans from outside of Tempest. Safe to say they were nervous to be in the presence of a demon lord. How I look isn't a secret after all. Gaha, Felix. I see that you could not resist coming back for more. Greeted Veldora. I snapped my fingers, creating a small barrier around us that isolated our conversation. I didn't want anyone to realize that the friendly food stand chef was actually a fearsome true dragon. Your takoyaki is pretty good, I said as I took the takoyaki from Veldora's hand. Haha, good. One day I shall reach enlightenment and prepare a takoyaki so good that even my sisters will have to bow down to my greatness, boasted Veldora. Well, it's good to have dreams, I guess. According to Rimuru, that hockey I felt yesterday was yours, right? Asked Veldora, his hands moving with surprising grace as he began to cook up a few more servings. Maybe. I did unleash my demon lord's hockey, and I'm fairly certain Rimuru wasn't able to place a barrier on time to completely conceal it. Gaha, as expected of you, Felix. That hockey felt as powerful as my sister's. Seriously? Veldora nodded. Demon Lord's hockey is inferior to Dragon Spirit hockey, of course. The true dragon race is supreme after all. But the power coming from your hockey was approaching that of my sister's. Which sister? Veldora shivered slightly, his smile dropping for an instant. Vel grinned. I see. Well, that's good to know, I guess. Anyways, I'm off now, don't want to hold up the line anymore. See ya. Goodbye, Felix. Stop by again, I promise my takoyaki will reach realms never seen before. You got it, buddy. I snapped my fingers, removing the barrier I placed, and then walked on. People from Veldora's stall were still staring at me, but I just ignored them. Fame is natural when one is a demon lord, even if rather than fame, one becomes infamous. It's thanks to Rimuru that people weren't shaking the moment they laid eyes on me. He's managed to change the perception of demon lords ever so slightly. And seeing as I have a relationship with him, the humans aren't as fearful of me. As I was walking, I extracted my new anti-skill dagger from my infinity space. I swapped it into a reverse grip and did some practice slashes and jabs. I was interested in learning how to properly wield this. After all, it would be a fairly useful weapon in certain circumstances. I ignored the stares I was getting and continued to practice with the dagger. My combat instinct was practically unmatched thanks to my various awakenings, but even I knew that I would need to train to properly wield this dagger. At least I would have to train if I really wanted to master it. I twirled it around in my hand before storing it back into infinity space. I can practice more with it another time. It didn't take me long to reach my home in Tempest. Master. Raiden greeted me. I gave her a nod. Raiden. Did everything go well with Mariabelle? She nodded. Yes, she was able to send out the message you requested of her, and her underlings did not question anything. That's about what I expected. Where's Mariabelle? She is waiting in the living room. She said you would wish to send her back to her prison. Responded Raiden. Yup, I need her safe after all. Plus she deserves some more punishment. I made my way to the living room with Raiden following closely behind me. Once I was there, I saw Mariabelle sitting on the couch, staring blankly at a wall. She noticed my presence immediately. Lord Felix. I nodded to her and placed my hand on her shoulder, sending her back to my infinity prison. I turned to Raiden. Where is everyone else? I could just spread my senses throughout Tempest. With my universal sense it would be child's play to locate everyone, but I'd rather hear it from Raiden. If I could do everything myself, then what was the point in having subordinates? It was of course to be lazy. Apostrophe. Hey. I can be as lazy as I want. Apostrophe. As you wish. Hee. Victory. Lady Arcueid is currently negotiating with a foreign noble. Lady Megaman is currently sparring with Lord Carrion, and Supia is watching them. Lady Lalatina is resting in her room. Tsuko is currently meeting with Miss Shuna. She called everyone else with Lord and Lady, but not with Tsuko? Well, those two always have had an odd rivalry as my first two subordinates. Woman, I'll never understand them. How come you are calling Arcueid, Megaman and Lalatina with the lady title? I imagine it is for some maidly reason I couldn't hope to understand, but it is fairly recent. Raiden never used to call them that way before. Raiden nodded as if it was obvious. Out of respect for their strength, of course. So it was for a far more simple reason. Raiden usually doesn't act like one, but in the end once a dragon always a dragon. Respecting the strong is a very draconic thing. I see. Continue then. I ordered as I went to the fridge and grabbed some apple juice. Sukuna is currently in the dungeon. I tilted my head curiously hearing that. What's he doing in the dungeon? He has apparently sparked a rivalry with Lord Veldora's student. Said Raiden. Zijin? Raiden nodded. I do recall that being his name. Well, that's interesting. I'm curious to see where that rivalry takes them. Zijin has a lot of potential. He is the true potential man. Megami is a fraud. Plus every shonen protagonist needs their rival. I guess Sukuna will be Zijin's. I wasn't going to complain. Either Sukuna will keep up and grow, or he will fall behind. It's up to him. But I have a feeling he will rise to the challenge. He was once the king of curses after all. No matter what I said to that version of Sukuna, he was at the top of his verse for a reason. Kurumi is currently sleeping. Ugh, I swear that girl should have manifested sloth. She is lazier than even I am. Ingvild is currently attending another concert being held to celebrate the end of the founding festival. Glenda had decided to attend with her. I nodded in understanding. Adra and Zonda had returned to my territory seeing as their job was done. Did Rain leave already? I don't sense her here. Normally that wouldn't be anything strange, but Rain is a lazy bum. I can't imagine her going anywhere willingly. Indeed, she had said she wished to stay longer but that Lord Guy would be angry at her. Said Raiden. I see. Finally she's out of my hair, Guy can deal with her now. Raiden nodded in understanding. Indeed, she is a below-standard maid. I cannot imagine why someone of Lord Guy's standing would accept such a thing. I shrugged my shoulders. Who knows? And Sasha had left just earlier in order to buy some supplies she wished to take back to your territory, Master. Raiden continued. Well, that was everyone accounted for. Very well then, I'll be going to see Lalatina. I have a mission for her. I'll throw the job of returning Laplace onto her. I'm sure she will find a way to deal with Luminous's ire. Raiden bowed. I shall begin preparing dinner. I nodded. All right, thanks. I didn't bother knocking on Lalatina's door as I entered. Master. Did you wish to make use of me again? Lalatina asked eagerly. I sighed. No, I have a non-sexual mission for you. I had to specify or I'm sure she would go on to ask if the mission was sexual in nature. What did you wish for me to do? Asked Lalatina, sounding slightly disappointed. I withdrew Laplace from my infinity space and floated him to the ground next to Lalatina. I need you to take him back to Luminous. Lalatina nodded with a grin. Luminous, eh? It's been a while since I've had fun with her. Oh? When was the last time you saw her? I asked curiously. That was when one of my idiotic dependents summoned me into a new host body that I was unsatisfied with. The event took place within Luminous domain and so she showed up. We had a bit of fun before we returned to the demon realm. I nodded. I see. It didn't surprise me that Lalatina knew Luminous. After all, the Primordials generally had established domains they liked to play around in. Lalatina usually made a mess of things in the Western nations, Luminous backyard. Arcueid played around in the Eastern Empire, and Megaman in El Dorado. Would you wish for me to go now? Asked Lalatina. Yeah, that would be preferable. As you command, Master. Lalatina snapped her fingers and put on her usual purple-colored military garbs. I'm not sure why Arcueid, Megaman and Lalatina enjoy wearing those kinds of things when doing anything official. Then she grabbed Laplace by his leg as if she was preparing to drag him, which she might as well be. Here, I'll teleport you directly past Luminous's wards so you don't have to deal with her guards. As expected of you, Master. I'm sure Luminous will be very happy to see me. For some reason, I doubted that, but Lalatina was now Luminous's issue to deal with. I snapped my fingers, creating a portal that connected to the lounge in Luminous's inner sanctum. I could have just directly teleported her, but portals can be fun too. Lalatina happily walked through while humming. I have a feeling Luminous is going to be even annoyed with me after this. Lalatina, you are my special. She walked through the portal her precious master had made while humming as she dragged the comatose clown by his leg. She recalled her master saying the song he was humming was called Specials. It was fairly catchy. She could have easily carried him, or even floated him, but according to what she knew, this clown had inconvenienced her master by killing his student. Lalatina didn't care much for the girl other than the fact that her fighting style seemed familiar, and that she had quite a bit of untapped potential, but many people were similar on that front. She had encountered many with high potential, most however never achieved their full potential due to various reasons, whether it was due to challenging a demon lord in their arrogance, or simply becoming too confident in their abilities and then getting taken off guard. She could count hundreds of times when those she was interested in would die. Of course, she would not help them. If they died, then they wouldn't have been worth her attention in the first place. Though on occasion she did claim the souls of such individuals and reincarnate them as demons under her. As a primordial, it was possible for her to incarnate the recently deceased as demons if certain conditions were met. In fact, Diablo was the one who did this the most, though he almost always lost interest in the beings he would reincarnate. From what she knew, Adra was once a human swordsman that Megaman found interesting. Upon his death, she incarnated him as a demon under her, although he lost his memories in the process. She thought back to the so-called student her master had taken. For some odd reason, her master did seem to care for the girl. That was enough for Lalatina to immediately place the clown on her disliked list. Most people on that list were still being tortured in the demon realm by some of her subordinates on her behalf. She couldn't do that to this clown, seeing as her master needed him for something, so she would content herself in dragging his face around. The events of the last few days were quite enjoyable for Lalatina. It was fairly amusing watching the humans attempt to speak with her master as equals, not knowing he could purge them with but a look. Humans were always amusing like that. She had laughed when Archue had told her of what she did in the Eastern Empire. To think some humans, even if they were stronger than the norm, would believe that they had slain a primordial. Truly, the wonders of the human race would never cease, would they? When one had lived for eons, they began to take pleasure in the little things. Like the feeling of when one of her plots was successful. Though occasionally, there were things Lalatina took great pleasure in, like feeling herself being filled up by her master's semen and submitting to his every whim. She rubbed her thighs together slightly as she thought back to when her master had made use of her. He truly was the greatest. Lalatina focused back on the events that took place at the Tempest Founding Festival. She even saw the result of one of her plots at the festival, which was a surprise. Toa and that Kaijin of hers, Iroh, had attended, and it seemed her master even knew the Kaijin. That plot of hers may have been unsuccessful, but it was still enjoyable watching the Kaijin beg for the life of his queen. He proved to be entertaining enough, and so Lalatina restored Toa back to full health as a reward for the Kaijin. It was shortly after that event that Archue had came to recruit her for her master as well, a reward for her efforts, she supposed. Not to mention how enjoyable it was to let loose a little bit. She hadn't slaughtered a large amount of people in such a long time. And while she would never trade her master's affections for anything, she did still miss the constant state of bloodshed present in the demon realm. Some of her opponents even had unique skills, which made them quite fun to play around with. She didn't truly need to take any of them seriously, for not one of the attackers that she had met had even a fraction of her magicule capacity or magic power, and they hadn't even seemed to have fully mastered the skills they had been granted. One could not hope to challenge a primordial without true mastery over their abilities. From what she heard, Archue and Megaman felt the same. They enjoyed themselves, but there was no true challenge to be found in the attackers. They were simply fulfilling her master's orders while taking pleasure in it. But that was the life of a primordial. In the demon realm they were unmatched. That was partly the reason why the three of them would fight each other so often, because there was no one else to fight. At the very least, she got to offer her master the souls of those that she had slain. That was something of a staple in the demon realm, to offer souls one had obtained to their superior in the hopes for recognition. In her case, she just wished for more of her master's love. She knew she had changed since entering her master's service. She had changed irreversibly, but she would have it no other way. She expanded her senses to see where Luminous was, and she could sense Luminous lounging about in her throne room as she always did. The truth was that as long-lived beings, a lot of their time was spent doing absolutely nothing. Lalatina navigated through Luminous's inner sanctum. This wasn't her first time here after all. She used to show up fairly often to fight that hero that stayed with Luminous as well as Luminous herself. In fact, Luminous and her could be considered old rivals. Though she did always wonder where that hero went, Luminous would never give her a straight answer when she asked about the hero. She was not concealing her presence, which meant Luminous was knowingly ignoring her arrival, likely some form of power play on her part. She was likely expecting her to come to the throne room as if Lalatina were one of her subjects. Of course, Lalatina was not going to play along. She casually made her way around Luminous's inner sanctum, while poking through all of Luminous's secret rooms. It wasn't until she found a corridor that was hidden by numerous barriers and spells that she grew interested. "Oh, I wonder what you are keeping hidden here, Luminous." She laughed. She dragged the clown behind her as she took a step forward, triggering the various alarms Luminous had placed. It took but a moment for Luminous to teleport in front of her with an angry frown on her face. "What are you doing, Violet?" Luminous demanded. "Violet? Who was that?" Lalatina asked with a mischievous smile, only continuing after she saw her frown deepen. "Ah, I was just wandering around. You see, since I was not greeted, I assume you were busy. Who knew I would find an interesting room like this?" Luminous's brow twitched as she sighed. "Ugh, you are such a pain to deal with." "Fine, come with me. Bring the clown with you." "Oh, but I wanted to see what you're hiding," she whined. "As if you just take pleasure in annoying me," scoffed Luminous. "Hee, perhaps." Lalatina laughed as she followed along behind Luminous. She continued to bug Luminous as they made their way to the lounge. Once there, Lalatina took a look around. "You did not change much, huh?" "Of course not. What need is there to change something that is already perfect?" scoffed Luminous. Lalatina ignored Luminous's cocky words and took a seat on one of the couches while casually throwing the clown across the room. "Do be careful with him. He does still have his uses," said Luminous. "Of course. I would not fail my master like that," scoffed Lalatina. Luminous was acting awfully foolish for thinking she would go against her master like that. Luminous took a seat across from her. "Your master, huh? I did not think there would be a day when you of all people would recognize someone as your master, let alone that master being someone like Felix." Lalatina's eyes narrowed. "What are you insinuating? That my master is not worthy of my service?" Lalatina voiced out, her voice chilly. Luminous laughed lightly, ignoring the pressure Lalatina had evoked with her words. "No. I can understand why one would be drawn to a man like Felix. I did not particularly like him at first, but he has grown on me, like a fungus that refuses to leave. You must have been blind to not see the greatness of my master the moment you laid eyes on him, Luminous," she declared. Luminous rolled her eyes. Yes, I'm sure that you are correct. At least I'm glad you aren't making a mess of things for me anymore." All of a sudden a fun idea came to Lalatina's mind. Her master could always use more bed warmers, or lovers as he likes to call them. Not to mention she had overheard her master talking about the fact that Luminous was acting like a brat and was in need of punishment. She was his loyal slave, and so she would fulfill his wishes as was natural. Luminous was strong, she could admit that to herself. Having her completely on her master's side could be beneficial to her master. Not that she thought her master needed Luminous, but an extra tool to use could always find a use. So she will do her duty as her master's loyal sex slave, and pet. She will convert Luminous into seeing the light. Soon Luminous will be singing praises of her master just like her. It should be easy, all she needed to do was explain her master's greatness. Maybe her master will even reward her for her service. "Humphrey. I'm sure you would change your mind if you got to experience my master's touch." Lalatina teased. What?" stuttered out Luminous. Hey, Luminous might not show it, but she had a weak defense but a strong offense, as her master liked to say. Lalatina herself had borne witness to some of Luminous's seduction attempts on the hero after their battles, when she would stick around to bug Luminous a bit. But the hero from back then was either playing clueless, or she was actually clueless. Lalatina was not quite sure herself, but the show was still amusing. Lalatina nodded. Yes. I know you are still quite upset about your failed seduction attempts on that hero, but I'm sure my master will be more receptive to you." The blush on Luminous's face faded, and she just stared at Lalatina with a judgmental stare. She took a deep breath. "My seduction attempts did not fail. Granola was just occupied with something. I am sure that once she has returned, she will return my affections." Luminous nodded confidently. Lalatina looked at Luminous with pity. "Are you sure? From what you are saying, that hero from back then is still alive. What if, after all this time, they have found someone else?" Luminous' face turned green upon hearing her words. Did Felix tell you?" "No, he wouldn't have." Lalatina tilted her head. "Did Master tell me what?" Luminous shook her head. "No, it's nothing, I was mistaken." Lalatina nodded. "Very well. I am sure my master's touch will be far better than the hero's. Whenever he caresses me, I feel shivers in my very soul. It makes me want to serve him with my very being." Lalatina went on and on about her master's virtues. Luminous had tried to stop her multiple times, but she ignored her. Before long, Luminous stopped trying to interrupt and just listened to her detailed narration of their intimate moments. "He said those things to you?" asked Luminous with a blush. Lalatina noticed she was rubbing her thighs together slightly. Hey, even if spiritual life forms like Luminous and her had perfect bodily control, it didn't work when their soul was working against their minds. The soul knew what the body and heart wanted, and so it would cause the appropriate reactions in the body, even if the mind was resistant to it. Lalatina nodded proudly. "Indeed, I am my master's personal bitch slave. He is free to degrade me as he wishes. In fact, I urge him to do so," Lalatina said with a pant. In the first place, love for spiritual life forms like them was far different from the love the mortal life forms indulged in. For mortals, love was fleeting. They would fall in love, and then fall out of love in a moment's notice. Even their physical bodies played a large role in who the mortals fell in love with. Spiritual life forms are beings made of pure willpower and energy. Their physical bodies had no true influence over their thought process. For spiritual beings, love was far more spiritual. Once one is in love, it is nigh impossible for that love to be broken unless something drastic takes place. In the first place, love between spiritual life forms is a connection between souls. It is not something that is broken easily, if ever. Their memories are always available. The times such beings spend together are forever inscribed in the soul, as well as the feelings those memories evoked when they first took place. No matter how Luminous may have felt in the past, once an attraction between two spiritual life forms has developed, it is generally bound to progress due to how rare such a thing is. If one's soul desires the companionship of another, even if the mind protests against it, the soul will eventually influence the mind enough to give in. Of course, it is possible to resist, but why would Luminous resist her beloved master? Lalatina knew that Luminous did hold some fondness for her master. When she had brought him up earlier, she saw some fondness enter Luminous's eyes. Her master truly had a way with people. He had an odd charisma around him. Luminous licked her dry lips. "I see. He even gave you a collar?" Luminous asked with some curiosity. Lalatina lightly touched her neck and deactivated the magic her master had her place to hide the collar from common eyes. Luminous laid eyes to her precious collar that she was always wearing. "Property of Felix White?" Luminous shouted, stunned. Lalatina gently caressed the collar. "Yes. My master marked his physical ownership over me that day." A crimson-red blush appeared on Luminous's face. "I did not think Felix was one to take part in such degeneracy." Lalatina took out something she had gotten Rain to make from her spatial storage. Even back in the demon realm, Rain was always fond of the arts. As a result, she was an incredibly good artist. Of course, Lalatina had commissioned a certain piece from her. It was an image of her master in all his glory. Luminous' gaze was drawn to the portrait she was holding in her hand. What is that?" Luminous said as she saw the upper half of the photo. Lalatina turned it around, allowing Luminous to witness her master's full glory. This is my single most prized possession." Luminous' mouth opened in astonishment. "Is that Felix?" Lalatina nodded proudly. She had gotten Rain to draw her master in all his naked glory. She shakily passed the image on to Luminous. She had copies, but she was still hesitant to pass on such a glorious item. But it was for her goal, so she must do what was necessary. Luminous was staring at it with an odd look on her face while panting slightly. Lalatina noticed that the blush had returned to Luminous' face. She did not blame Luminous. Her master in all his glory was an attractive man. Each and every one of his flaws had been seemingly perfected through evolution. Not many could claim to be his match when it came to attractiveness. I do not know why you are handing it to me. But out of respect for Felix, I will be taking it out of your hands and incinerating it." "Huh? If you are going to do that, then just leave it with me." Unfortunately, she was too late, for Luminous had already grabbed the portrait out of her hand and stored it in her spatial storage. Humphrey. It would be rather unfortunate if such an image got out to the public. I will do my duty as a fellow demon lord and ensure the prestige of the 9 sovereigns does not fall due to this," Luminous grandly declared. For some reason, Lalatina felt that Luminous was lying. Aha! Luminous was just too shy to accept her gift. Lalatina nodded with a happy smile. I see. I understand now." "What do you understand?" asked Luminous. Nothing. Don't worry about it." See? Lalatina decided that she had made enough progress for today. She knew this would be a multi-step plan. She needed to be patient to succeed. "I must return to your master now. I am sure that he is in need of my services," declared Lalatina. "By services, you mean?" "Of course, my services as his loyal bed slave." Luminous' brow twitched. "I see. Have fun then. I will keep Laplace in containment." I will have enough fun for the both of us, Luminous. Lalaitina declared as she teleported out with spatial transport. Unlike her master, she was incapable of using instant transport. In fact, her master was the only person she had met to be capable of using instant transport. It only went to show how great he truly was. Spatial transport allows her to teleport with a notably shorter activation time than normal spatial motion and without a need for portals. The only requirement is an image of the current location and the destination. As Lalaitina arrived back in her room, she smirked proudly. She may not have completely converted Luminous, but she had made good progress. Soon, Luminous would be on her knees beside her, pleasuring her master. She vowed it, Luminous Valentine. She made her way to her private quarters. Once Lalaitina had left, she ordered Gunter to take Laplace to her dungeon, and then she sat there stunned at the events that had taken place. She had not expected to learn all about Felix's degeneracy today. As she thought back to Lalaitina's explicit detailed stories, she rubbed her thighs together slightly as she felt her nipples harden. As a spiritual life form, she was easily capable of controlling her body perfectly. Of course, she saw no reason to stifle her arousal. Her unique skill was lust for a reason. She extracted the image Lalaitina was attempting to pass to her from her spatial storage. The image depicted Felix completely nude with nothing hidden. Her eyes focused on his groin, and then wandered all over his body. She licked her lips slightly as she laid on her bed and stripped herself bare. She may have been mostly attracted to women, but she was also attracted to men who fit her criteria, and Felix did fit that type, even with his flaws. Someone strong, humorous enough to balance out her more serious nature, and one that was not afraid to exert their power over others. Of course, there was more she looked for in a partner, but those were just the basics. She did not have much experience in the scene of romance. She was a demon lord after all. She refused to have a weakness that could be exploited. She did love her luminaries once upon a time in a platonic way, but they had betrayed her, and so she had promptly dealt with all of them except Granville, who would meet his fate soon enough. The most serious attempt she had made was with Cronoa, but of course, that blasted slime, and Felix managed to get in her way again and again. Back then, even though it would take thousands of years for them to appear, they had already been a source of annoyance to her. Both Chloe and Hinata would go on and on about their teachers. Chloe made Drumroll out to be a god of some kind, which was wholly inaccurate, while Hinata and Chloe both made Felix out to be a very powerful annoyance. At the very least, that was accurate. Sure, she had been interested in the demon lord, but that interest only grew after she met him at the Walpurgis. It was there that she witnessed true Gapmo for the first time. With Felix annoying her and exposing her identity, immediately afterwards giving her a full potion which may have saved Hinata's life. Besides, she was sure that evil lizard put him up to it. Veldora was a bad influence. Hinata's words were indeed correct. Gapmo indeed was truth. Rimuru was also at the meeting, but she respected her friend's interest and her unhealthy obsession with him too much to try anything with him. Besides, he wasn't even her type. He was far too good. It had almost cost him the lives of the people he cared for the most, but he was still searching for the best in people. Ever since she had heard about Felix, she had been interested in the man that had taught Hinata as well as a previous version of Chloe. With some slight changes, he would truly become her ideal partner. Perhaps she can mold him to match what she wished for? Maybe at first she was annoyed by Felix's personality, but she now knew his teasing and jokes were in harmless fun. He did not wish to intentionally harm her, that was simply his personality, which Luminous could accept with some annoyance. Besides, she had centuries to prepare for him. Chloe and Hinata had gone into detail about both Rimuru and Felix. She knew he would infuriate her at times centuries before he was even born. Hinata had called him a bully, but Felix didn't seem to act like that with everyone as far as she had observed. Why would he only act that way to her? She knew it wasn't because he disliked her. All of a sudden a great epiphany hit Luminous. Perhaps that was his way of showing her affection? She was an attractive woman, she had many suitors in the past, and the present. Even a man such as Felix surely found himself charmed by her beauty. Yes, his annoying ways are simply his ways of showing her affection. How cute, he had multiple lovers and yet still could not properly convey his feelings to her. Hinata called this Gapmo. It seems Felix liked her but did not know how to show it. When she thought about it that way, all of the bullying took on an entirely different meaning. Along with the information she had received from Hinata in the past, she found Felix to be rather cute at times. Another example of Gapmo which Hinata had explained to her, when he would pretend to be annoyed by you but would still look out for you. Hinata mentioned him doing something similar when he blessed her elemental without informing her. He didn't even notice it, but he was what Chloe would refer to as a tsundere. Rimuru was lacking in that aspect when compared to Felix. He was far more hesitant to use his rightful power over others. He was a good man, she could say that with confidence, but he was not exactly her type. Felix was more of a tyrant, doing what he pleased, even if that usually meant annoying her to death. Perhaps Guy could have been her type, but he was far too rough for her. Felix was a bit of a goof, but he was far more gentlemanly while also dominant enough to be to her tastes. She gently touched her tight moist slit and she began to finger herself. One of her hands went to her breast and began pinching and lightly twisting her nipples, causing her to moan out in pleasure. She clearly imagined the image of Felix that Lalitina had given her in her mind as she continued to toy with herself. That infuriating smirk of his only served to turn her on more. Especially when she began to play out his inner monologue in his head. How he was desperately trying to find a way to charm her, but was too tsundere to properly flirt with her. She slid one of her fingers into her untouched slit, then two, then three as she began to roughly finish herself to completion. The pulling of her nipples only added to the sensation. "Ma!" she cried out as she came all over her fingers. For some reason her arousal had not disappeared as it usually did when she pleasured herself to Hinata or Chloe. In fact, it seemed to have increased. Though that was probably Lalitina's fault, the primordial had gone on and on about her degeneracy. Her poor mind had been tainted, and now she had to clear it by working extra hard. Luminous would have stopped her, but with how determined Lalitina was, any real effort would have caused her to make a mess. She continued to toy with herself like that for hours, each climax making her image more and more degenerate things that each involved Felix. "Ooh yes. Spank me harder, Felix," she mewed as she was now bent over with her rear end aimed to the sky, wiggling slightly as if trying to revive the spanks that she was clearly imagining. She could tell she had continued playing with herself to the image of Felix for the entire night once she heard a knock on her door. "Mistress. You had asked me to wake you up in order to properly punish the clown further." Luminous groaned as she pulled her fingers out of her sopping quim. She snapped her fingers and cleaned herself of the juices on her thighs as well as the mattress and her hand. She was still aroused, but she suppressed her arousal for later. She could satisfy her cravings another time. "I will be out momentarily, Gunter," she announced. "Yes, mistress." She heard Gunter walk away and rose up from her bed and made her way to her dresser and opened a drawer. A drawer that was guarded with multiple spells and curses, practically impossible to break through for most. She set the image of Felix besides a few other images she had collected over the years, one of her and Chloe sharing the bath, and one of Hinata and her sharing the bath. She remembered that according to Chloe, who was too dense to realize, Hinata and Felix were lovers in a previous timeline, and from what she had seen, her Hinata had grown rather fond of Felix. Perhaps she can acquire Hinata's love through Felix. But, she was far too prideful to practically prostitute herself just to be with Hinata. No, she would need to acquire both Hinata and Felix for it to be worth it. She would fix Felix and live out her ideal life. Perhaps after that she may grow to care for Felix beyond their friendship. She ignored the pain in her chest at the thought of Felix refusing to return her affections. Of course such a thing was impossible, as clearly Felix was already madly in love with her, which made her job of seducing him and Hinata easy. Felix will be her first target then. She took one last look of her most recent acquisition and groaned angrily as she felt herself get aroused once more. This was all Felix's fault. She would have her revenge. See how he likes being forced to endure her constant seduction. She already knew what he enjoyed thanks to Lalitina's stories. Somehow Lalitina was aware of what activities Felix partook in with his other partners. Though she did wonder, what type of girls did he like? All of his lovers were fairly busty, even the formerly flat Lalitina had grown a bust in order to please Felix. She looked down at her far more modest chest and Humphrey'd. She would not change herself for Felix's satisfaction. Well, perhaps she would if he begged or asked nicely. Though for some reason she began to feel a bit happy when she imagined Felix telling her to stay as she is in her natural form. She wondered why that was. Chapter 121, Guardian of the West. I sensed Lalitina teleport back into her room. She took longer than I thought she would, but she probably just got caught up in some conversation with Luminous. I'm sure they have some ancient history between them. Perhaps they were even destined shonen rivals. Everyone seems to have a shonen rival now. Zijin and Sukuna, Lalitina and Luminous, Guy and Ryudra, Leon and Kazlim. I'm sure there are more out there. Who's gonna be my shonen rival? Well, that was for me to worry about later. Now that Lalitina is back, I guess I'll go to the dungeon and begin training with my new dagger. I'm just not feeling like sleeping now, too much on my mind. Sure, I could force myself to sleep, but when I don't even really need sleep in general, what's the point of that? I've already checked in with everyone else, so I don't need to bother with that. Arcuade is with Megaman going shopping. Even at this time, a lot of stores in Tempest are open. Lalitina, Arcuade, and Megaman all seem to enjoy that activity. It must be universal for women or something. Ingvild and Glinda have already gone to bed. Siko said she was preparing a surprise for me with Shuna. I assumed it was some sort of dish. I wasn't too afraid for my health, as Siko had improved by leaps and bounds compared to when she first started cooking. Not to mention, Shura is probably there to mitigate the worst of her tendencies. Sukuna was still sparring with Zijin. He had wanted to return earlier, but I convinced him to enjoy himself with his destined shonen rival. Of course, he assumed I wanted him to get stronger, so he promised to become more useful. I'll never understand that guy. Kurumi was currently playing video games like the pseudo-Nietzsche had become. Carrion is out and about doing whatever it is he does. I don't bother keeping tabs on him like I do my other subordinates. I don't even really keep much of an eye on my direct subordinates either. It's mostly just them asking for permission to do things, which keeps me informed of what they are up to. As far as I know, Carrion has been training his ass off. He was getting beat up by Megaman earlier, but his pain hasn't been for nothing. When he first came into my service, I'd say his existence points were at about 250,000, and when he transforms into his beast form, he can push all the way up to about 600,000. Now his base is above 300,000, which is a fairly large improvement. Still below my direct subordinates, but Carrion is in no way weak. He is even beginning to approach the power of a weaker saint. I imagine after he goes through his harvest festival his existence points will rise to above 2 million. An impressive amount. After my harvest festival, my power increased multiple times over, but it can vary between each awakener. For example, Rimuru magicule capacity increased by about 10x, while my own increased by 11x. Perhaps it was based on one's innate potential? In that case, who knows where Carrion will end up? Though I imagine his existence points won't exceed 3 million. He has potential, but to get higher than that, he will have to train his ass off. He doesn't have any super broken cheats like Rimuru and me, so hard work is gonna be his best friend. Though from what I know, he'll definitely try and train his way up to match those individuals. His mindset is very beast-like in that way. If he isn't strong enough, then he just isn't training hard enough. I got up off the couch I was lounging on. "Will you be going to sleep, master?" asked my ever-present maid. I shook my head. "Nah, just going to the dungeon to get some training done." "I see. Did you wish for me to accompany you?" asked Raiden. "Nah, I'll be fine actually. I could use a sparring partner that I can take it easy with, no offense, Raiden." Raiden shook her head. "No offense taken. I am well aware of your vast superiority over me. The difference between us can be described as the difference between heaven and the earth." Yeah, right. Perhaps you can also learn a bit from sparring with me. Feel free to try out any new techniques you've come up with on me. I could probably help you improve them as well as give you someone to go all out on." Raiden nodded. "Very well. Thank you for training me, master. It's no problem. As I've come to recently find, I enjoy training people. I guess seeing the progress my students make satisfies me for whatever reason." I shrugged. "Anyways, are you ready to go?" Raiden nodded. "Yes, master." Raiden's ki was already stored within her body, and I guess she didn't need anything else. Before we could leave, however, we were interrupted. "Ah, master." I turned to the voice and was met with Lalatina, who was dressed in a fairly skimpy outfit that showed off plenty of cleavage. She had some black booty shorts that barely covered anything, and along with that, she wasn't wearing a bra, leaving a nipple imprint. Very sexy. "Yes, Lalatina." "Ah, thanks for handling that chore for me, by the way." "It was no problem, master. I got to have fun with Luminous as well," giggled Lalatina, her smile turning mischievous. "Ah, so they did talk a bit then. Well, either that or they fought." "I see. Did you need something?" "Raiden and I were just about to go to the dungeon for some training. I just wanted to know if you wished to make use of this lowly slave's body," purred Lalatina. "We just had sex earlier, but sexual stamina isn't really an issue for neither me nor Lalatina. We were always locked and loaded, if you will." I shook my head. "Perhaps later when I need to distress. If you wish to make use of someone's body, feel free to use mine, master," interrupted my maid. "Haha, sure I will, don't worry." I noticed Lalatina pouting from the corner of my eyes. She was just jealous that I was giving someone else attention. For being my self-proclaimed masochistic slave, she sure was needy. "I'll use you when I want to, Lalatina. Remember who owns you." I growled out. Hearing me, Lalatina gained a full blush on her face and began panting. "Yes, master." "Ugh, of course, that got her motor running. Degenerate. I'm getting more and more corrupted by Lalatina. She seriously is a bad influence on me. But she's hot. A lot of things can be forgiven if it's for a hot woman. It's just how the world works. Besides, I know Lalatina has my best interest in mind, so I don't mind her neediness." I turned to Raiden and nodded. Seeing she was ready, I snapped my fingers and teleported us to floor 90, a floor that hadn't been fully set up yet, so it was pretty empty other than the magic beasts and monsters that spawned from Veldora's magicules. The moment we appeared, all the various monsters scattered, not because of me, I was concealing my aura completely, but because of Raiden. Her naturally released draconic aura was quite fearsome to most. Her dragon's haki alone was only matched by Arcuaid, Lalatina, and Megaman's Demon Lord's haki and Siko's mortal fear, which allows Siko the ability to inflict fear through her haki, causing the enemy to lose the will to fight. In doing so, the enemy is prevented from utilizing their full strength. This form of haki was tremendously effective in combat. Siko can even use it through her subordinates, turning them into Terror Knights. In fact, Dagrul's sons have long since considered themselves Siko's subordinates, allowing them to become conduits for her mortal fear. It seems Sukuna and Zijin are still fighting on Veldora's floor. I commented. I am unable to sense such a thing, as expected of Master to be able to sense through dimensions. Praised Raiden. I don't really have the heart to tell her that I was able to easily sense everything in the dungeon thanks to the admin access I have over it. I simply nodded and withdrew my dagger from my infinity space. I twirled it around my hand for a few seconds, attempting to get more used to it as I waited for Raiden to get ready. Raiden summoned her Ecchi from inside of her and got in her stance. We were in a fairly large room, so we had quite a lot of space to maneuver around. I gripped the dagger in a similar way as I would with my katana. My thumb was extended along the side of the handle, giving me more precise control as well as precise cuts and thrusts. I'm ready when you are, Raiden. Raiden nodded with a determined look on her face, changing her stance. Lightning crackled around her before she vanished. One moment, she had been standing across from me, but the next, she was in front of me. A trail of crackling lightning blazing behind her. I smiled as I noticed her improvement. It was clear that she had been working hard to grow. Lowering my body in one smooth motion, I let her slash pass right above me. I could feel the strong gust of wind caused by her sudden movements, which was quickly followed by a thunderous explosion. Using my universal sense, I saw how one of the massive pillars located over 100 feet behind me crumbled into pieces. Raiden's strength had grown to the point where she would be able to cleave through mountains with ease. That was with her physical power alone. When she channeled her innate skills and her unique skill, thunder, she would become a force of nature. A destructive storm disguised by her human form. While I got lost in my thoughts, Raiden's body crackled with lightning for a moment before she vanished into the air. With an elegant flip, she landed behind me, using all of her strength to thrust her Ecchi through my back. Without even bothering to turn around, I spun the dagger in my hand and intercepted her attack. Raiden's Ecchi froze just inches before reaching my back, but rather than losing motivation, she only became more determined. Her Ecchi crackled as pure white lightning began to flow wildly. The temperatures around her blade immediately heated up to around 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the surface of the sun back on Earth. Each bolt danced wildly around her before she vanished with a loud boom. The lightning dancing around her caused the air to rapidly heat and cool, which continued to create more and more disorienting thunder. Her body continued to practically teleport around me, searching for any opening. The combination of the sound barrier being broken and the thunder holding enough force in themselves to devastate a kingdom if she were to continuously fly around it. With a blinding flash of light, she would continue to appear from every direction. With each decisive slash she sent, I would send my own parry to stop them. I didn't need to try particularly hard, but this was still quite enjoyable. I'm sure if someone watched this from an outside pot, it would look like I was practically standing still while my arm moved at speeds the eye was incapable of seeing, while I blocked unseen attacks sent from a figure impossible to see. The only sign of Raiden was the almost constant after trails she left around me. Her speed had improved quite a bit from before. Raiden has been regularly training with my other subordinates, so it isn't surprising that she has grown. Eventually, Raiden had enough of her attacks and dashed back. I turned around to face her and flipped my dagger into a reverse grip. It was my turn to go on the offense. Let's see how her defense has improved. I wasn't using the dagger's anti-skill properties yet, as that would end the fight far too quickly. Raiden didn't have a clue as to what the dagger's true abilities were. She would be caught off guard, and from there, it would be easy to take advantage of her and knock her out. This spar wasn't about me dominating Raiden, it was about me becoming more comfortable with wielding a dagger, and it served as good practice for Raiden. I could wield a dagger perfectly with Odin's assistance, but there is a difference between knowing how to do something and truly understanding something. I divided the space between me and Raiden, allowing me to appear directly in front of her with my dagger aimed at her neck. I made sure to restrict my speeds to something Raiden could follow if she strained herself. Raiden raised her Ecchi just in time to block my strike, but, in the process, was sent flying back into the wall hundreds of feet behind her. As she flew back, I held my palm in her direction and set a basic nuclear cannon towards her. Sliding on the ground, she forcibly and quickly recovered her balance. Without wasting a moment, she sliced the nuclear cannon in half before sending a large chakram made of pure electricity toward me. I didn't need to dodge it, but when I see the opportunity for a clash of magic, I sure as hell am going to take it. Raising my palm in the air, I created a large mass of pure materialized space. I send it towards Raiden's electricity. Archangel Destruction. The mass of space flew across the floor of the labyrinth, and once it met with Raiden's attack, it consumed it into the very void. Raiden's lightning was able to resist for a few moments, trying to pierce through, but it was for nothing. The Archangel Destruction continued on directly towards Raiden, who vanished from her spot, leaving the attack to crash against the dungeon walls. The attack carved a good chunk of the wall out before vanishing out. I imagine the reason we were able to cause so much damage was that Ramiris wasn't focusing Veldor's magicules on this floor since it hadn't been set up yet. Noticing that her usual attacks were not going to be effective, Raiden changed her stance. Focusing, her body began to crackle for a few moments before her very being began to change to pure lightning-given form. In her new form, the moment something touched Raiden, it would be burnt to a crisp. She would be able to wield her lightning to an even higher degree with far less effort. Even a simple physical attack from her would be able to cause unimaginable destruction. Raiden quite literally was undergoing a change in state. Of course, she had to pay an appropriate price in magicules. I imagine if she had more magicules to spare, she could increase the power of her lightning state further. Raiden was not unlike a spiritual life form as she was now, and her speed alone would make her a threat. That was one hell of a power-up. Let's see what you got, Raiden. Raiden gave me a firm nod. She slashed her tiki in my direction, materializing a spherical blade storm directly on me. Usually, I wouldn't have to worry as Infinity would take care of it. But it seems my maid has been learning. She has coded her attack with Spiritrons, allowing it to bypass my Infinity. Raiden watched, confused, as her attack bypassed my Infinity and yet still disintegrated into nothingness the moment it touched me. I casually twirled my dagger. Infinity isn't my only defense, you know. Multi-dimensional barrier is not an easy thing to bypass. It literally envelops me in spatial dimensions by manipulating space and time, giving me a foolproof defense against almost all types of attacks, even Spiritron-based ones in the right conditions. As expected of you, Master. Raiden praised, her voice coming out in a weird, almost otherworldly tone. I accepted her praise with grace. Still, that was a pretty good surprise attack. Not many have the same kind of defense I do, so I imagine that would be capable of taking quite a few people out. Multi-dimensional barrier is incredibly broken. It is practically impossible to penetrate, so I'm not surprised Raiden failed. Alright, let's continue then, Raiden. Raiden nodded with a determined look and then resumed her attacks once more. Her speed had increased thanks to her lightning state as well as the power behind her attacks. I can safely say her speed is in the massively hypersonic plus range. She is a fast girl now. Raiden's swordsmanship had progressed an incredible amount since she began training it. It hasn't been long at all, and she would still put most sword masters to shame. She isn't quite as good as Gobda, but that guy is a true idiot prodigy. I don't doubt that she will surpass him eventually, though. The moment Raiden materialized with her blade ready to strike, I teleported behind her, sending an aura slash of my own in what was practically point-blank range. Using her new form, she moved at an almost impossible speed, dodging the attack before reappearing a good distance away in a defensive stance. Spinning the knife in my hand, I could feel myself getting more and more familiar with the dagger. And, letting out a small grin, I dashed towards Raiden. I sighed as I looked down at Raiden, who was now in her dragon form and was lying beaten on the floor. Her injuries were healing fairly quickly, but she will take some time to fully recover. Still, her injuries weren't for nothing. Through battle, all beings can basically overcome their max magicule capacity as well as increase their magic power. This can be done through fighting beings stronger than you, strengthening your will, or, well, any number of ways, really. Becoming stronger in this world was something anyone could achieve if they simply tried hard enough and had the willpower. She ended up changing into her dragon form as none of her more precise attacks were working, so she ended up going back to her roots, using the raw power and large size that dragons were known for. In her human form, Raiden's strength and power was more focused, but she couldn't bring as much physical power to bear as she could in her dragon form, but she could make up with this with her sheer speed alone. In some ways, speed is power. Her dragon form had grown after receiving the gift from my harvest festival. She was about 50 meters tall now. But while changing into her dragon form did have some benefits, it did have some downsides as well. For example, it made her a massive target. Raiden had said she was working on shifting into her lightning state while in her dragon form, but she kept losing control of herself and shifting back into her dragon form, so that was a work in progress. However, One thing that size was good for was that attacks like Melt Slash were practically ineffective. Sure, it would do damage, but it wouldn't do what it was meant to, since a larger target meant the Melt Slash itself had to encompass the entire target to erase them, which was not very easy to do. Melt Slash was only a one-shot kill technique against human-sized targets. Otherwise, it will just be causing some injuries. According to Veldora, Kranoa, who I'm not sure if it was Chloe or Hinata at the time, had attempted to use it on him in the past, but it only wounded him since he was in his dragon form. This was a pretty fun spar, Raiden. You've grown quite a bit. Good job. Raiden looked up at me and changed back into her humanoid form. Thank you, Master, but I am far from being able to deal with any threats in your way. Well, you'll get there eventually. Probably. Let's head back now. I'll leave Sukuna and Zijin to their spar without interruptions. I was kinda curious about what they were up to, but it's probably best if I leave them uninterrupted. Raiden nodded, and so I stored my dagger in my infinity space, snapped my fingers and teleported us to our respective rooms. In some hours, I'll have Mariabelle inform Yuki that she wishes for him to travel with her so that we can have a discreet meeting. Traveling back to the territory of the Western nations by carriage shouldn't take more than 2 days, but I don't want to give Yuki enough time to get suspicious and do anything bothersome. I had to modify my plan a bit due to Odin bringing up an important point. Traveling by carriage would take some time. Perhaps during that time, Yuki may get suspicious or something. So instead, once Mariabelle and Yuki are a bit outside of Tempest territory, I will teleport Yuki and Mariabelle myself somewhere discreet in Western Nations territory. As long as I am quick enough, Yuki won't have enough time to activate anti-skill, which could possibly mess up my teleportation. But in case something goes wrong, I can always go back to my territory, make sure I can properly use time stop without fucking something up, and then just go delete Yuki. The only reason I didn't go with the plan was that I wanted to make it personal. I wanted to slap him around with him, knowing he would die and that I was the reason for his death. Of course, I didn't plan on being an idiot and letting him get away like a shitty shonen villain. I would put certain measures in place just in case. Hopefully, Yuki will end up complying with Mariabelle's orders because he still thinks his cover has not been blown, which would be the ideal situation. It would be best if I dealt with him before he found out about what happened to Laplace. Once he does, I expect him to go to the ground as his strongest beatstick has been taken out, and he has no clue what information his enemies now have on him. So this will be my best opportunity to deal with him. I already have a few things I'd like to test on him to see if they would bypass his anti-skill, so at least that will be somewhat enjoyable. I summoned Mariabelle from my infinity space, and now is the time to learn if the plan will succeed or fail. Lord Felix. Mariabelle dully greeted. Mariabelle. I need you to inform Yuki that you two will be traveling together in order to have some kind of discreet discussion. Improvise if you need to. Mariabelle nodded. Very well. Where would you like me to lead him? We can talk about that later. Tell me what would be an ideal location in the territory of the Western nations to finish Yuki off? Mariabelle nodded. I do know of a place, just past the Kingdom of Blunt, where there is a forest that is known to be home to many hostile monsters and magin. That's fine. I was able to access Mariabelle's surface thoughts thanks to spiritual domination and was easily able to find enough information about the forest to teleport there. I nodded. Good. I'll teleport to you once you have left Tempest's territory. Thanks to spiritual domination, I can always know of Mariabelle's location, and see through her eyes as long as the distance is not too vast. This seriously is an NTR bastard skill. Your victims can't even escape you. Thankfully, I wasn't someone who would use my skills for evil. No, for that, I had Lalatina. I will go and notify Yuki now, then. That's fine. Actually, hold on, make sure you do not touch him at all, send him a message through one of your subordinates, and travel in separate carriages. Mariabelle agreed without question. I don't want anti-skill to nullify my spiritual domination after all. It shouldn't be that big of an issue. Yuki has no reason to suspect that the mind control woman is being mind controlled herself. Not to mention, he wouldn't want to expose his hand more than he has to, so I am fairly confident he won't even consider the option of Mariabelle being mind controlled. I don't really care if he releases her from my control after he has already been lured somewhere. After all, Mariabelle's use will expire after that. As you wish, Lord Felix. Don't bother informing me when you are leaving. I am capable of monitoring all your actions. Very well. Mariabelle nodded and then left. Now, while I wait, why don't I meet my new otherworlder subordinates? Arcuade said earlier that she would be meeting up with them today to debrief them. She left for said debriefing hours ago, so I assume she has already finished everything she needs to do with them. Raiden, I'll be going out. Let everyone else know if they are curious. I called out. Very well, enjoy yourself, master. Raiden called out from the kitchen. I snapped my fingers and teleported myself to the Tempest training ground where Archie had said she would be. The training ground was fortified by powerful barriers that Rimuru deployed with Uriel. So, it is more than sufficient to contain all the spars his subordinates have. I appeared behind a group of humans who were watching a spar between Archie and 5 other humans. These must be the group of otherworlders that wanted to serve me, seeing as they were demi-material life forms with unique skills. The moment I appeared, the otherworlders in front of me immediately turned around and drew their weapons. Well, at least they aren't idiots. Their eyes widened the moment they laid eyes on me. They quickly kneeled in front of me. My lord. I examined each of them from head to toe. There were 12 in front of me, and then there were 5 more fighting Archie. So that makes 17 new subordinates for me. They weren't weak either, at least when compared to the average level of strength in this world. Their existence values varied from as low as 40,000 to as high as 200,000. They could only be matched and slightly surpassed by some of the higher-ups in my military that Megaman has been training up. I noticed that the spar in the training ground had stopped. Archie had seemingly beaten them all to the ground in the few seconds I was not paying attention. And they weren't all that weak. Demi-material life forms are life forms that, despite being completely dependent on their material body, still display some spiritual qualities, such as possessing magicules. They are in between normal humans who are forced to draw on the magicules in the environment to fuel their magic and the far superior demi-spiritual life form. In fact, I am fairly certain that the ancestors of humanity, the high humans, were demi-material life forms as they had their own innate magic capacity as well as a lifespan of at least 1,000 years. Twilight Valentine really created some crazy beings. Archie approached me and gave me a deep bow. My lord. I nodded. Archie, I just came to check on my new subordinates. Archie nodded and gave a slight glare to the kneeling subordinates, who shivered. No need to scare them, Archie. I'm assuming they all passed your tests? Archie wanted to make sure none were spies for the enemy, and while I doubted that was the case, I was fine with Archie making sure. I could easily double-check with spiritual domination, but I didn't want to have to mentally dominate all my subordinates in order to confirm if they were spies or not. That sounded tiresome. Besides, I handed off all the hard work to my subordinates for a reason. I don't want to do any work at all. Guy had the right idea with just fucking off to some random continent and just hanging out. The demons that roam his continent make sure not to overstep their bounds, and he allows them to do what they wish. Some of them even attack the Western nations, though I'm not sure if that is on Guy's orders or if he just turns a blind eye to it. The demons' attacks are always rebuffed by the so-called Guardian of the West. Not much is known about this Guardian, but they are definitely powerful in order to single-handedly fight off hordes of demons. I remember Archie telling me about the Guardian. Flashback, I sat in the living room with Archie as she debriefed me about all the information she thought about asking Mariabelle. The Guardian of the West, huh? You said it is some being that is capable of single-handedly fighting off all the demons who attempt to invade the West? Just from that alone, I would put him at the level of my direct subordinates or perhaps beyond even them. The Guardian of the West may have a superior magicule capacity than even my primordial subordinates. Archie nodded. Yes, my lord, I had heard that even some of Rain and Misery's lieutenants occasionally took part in order to fight this Guardian of the West. And yet they still lost? Erucide shook her head. Perhaps, perhaps not. I am not aware of whether they lost and retreated or won and did not bother pursuing the Western nations further. I nodded. In the case that they won, they likely wouldn't have attacked the Western nations, as that would have been against Guy's will. They likely just went and fought the Guardian of the West for some entertainment. I recall that those lieutenants of Misery and Rain were quite powerful, easily powerful enough to defeat most enlightened without much trouble, and their sheer combat experience alone may allow them to stall a saint. I see. What information about this Guardian were you able to learn? The Guardian of the West is an insect magician named Razal. It seems he was personally named by Grandel himself, and he possesses armor that is impervious to all kinds of attacks and capable of harnessing the power of elementals. Similar to Zijin? Archie had nodded. From what was described, it seems so. That could be bothersome for my subordinates to deal with should this Guardian pose a problem. I see. What else did Mariabelle have to say about him? She said she had only met him once before, but that he exuded an incredibly powerful presence, one that terrified her, one superior to that of even Grandel's according to her. I frowned. I see. I'll have to take her words with a grain of salt. To those who are weak, someone like Clayman and someone like Rimuru would seem equally overpowering even when the difference between them was still incredibly large. Besides, Grandel, while magically powerful, wasn't a completely unbeatable foe from what Luminous told me. He was able to keep up with her due to his skill with a blade as well as support from his very own saints that would heal and buff him, similar to how the heroes in those Ecchi stories had saints that would do something similar. Razel also seems to be a subordinate or partner of Gran Rosso. He has been protecting the northern border of the western nations for over 1,000 years on Granble's order. Informed Arcuade. I see. Then he may be someone we will need to plan for, since I doubt Granble will just give up. Arcuade nodded. Indeed. Razel seems to be a fairly poor matchup for us demons due to his high magic resistance and ability to harness some power from elementals. Elementals were known to be strong against demons. Of course, this was only for a certain level. No elemental except perhaps an elemental lord would even have a chance of injuring a primordial. I shrugged my shoulders. If some spell isn't strong enough, then you just aren't putting enough power into it. That logic always seemed to work for me. If a normal spell doesn't work, then I just pour more magicules and magic power into the spell. But I knew that mindset was inherently wrong. Sometimes raw power wasn't enough against certain opponents, but in those cases, I have my trusty assistant Odin to come up with a plan. I will serve to the best of my abilities. Odin said with a hint of arrogance in her tone, as if she couldn't imagine a time when she would be incapable of coming up with a plan in such a scenario. Yeah, I know you will, Odin. Arcuade nodded. Yes, but I will still begin developing countermeasures to such a being. Arcuade was prideful of her power, but she was also very careful and liked to be prepared. Seeing as she had prep time, it wouldn't make much sense not to make use of it. I nodded. That's a good move. Perhaps ask everyone else for ideas as well. Arcuade nodded. It shall be done. Zijin's exoskeleton wasn't all that powerful as he was now, as it scales with his overall strength, and while he was powerful, as he was now, he would be incapable of doing what the Guardian of the West does, fighting off hordes of demons. Though I imagine there will always be things that can get through the defense of that type of exoskeleton, like Siko's cook may be able to take advantage of certain opportunities, perhaps my anti-skilled dagger along with various other abilities of mine. Maybe some of the more powerful nuclear magic as well, like gravity collapse, and if not that, then abyss annihilation should do the trick. Still, there is only so much planning that can be done without analyzing Razel himself. Every plan we make without doing that will be guesswork. As Mariabelle has learned, it is best not to make plans based on guesses. Flashback and, safe to say, the Guardian of the West, Razel, is not a threat that can be brushed off by most in this world. If he is similar to Zijin, then that would mean that his exoskeleton will grow in power and durability as Razel himself grows stronger. For all I know, Razel already has a god-grade exoskeleton that would make him impervious to almost all attacks unless they can reach the ultimate level. I'm sure my subordinates are capable of reaching that level eventually, but I do not know how long that will take. Perhaps Siko may be useful against Razel. Hey. Maybe he can be a stepping stone for Siko and some of my other subordinates. Yes, should I have prep time, I'll have Siko and Raiden take on Razel. As my two oldest subordinates, I have faith that they will overcome the challenge. I looked back down at the still kneeling otherworlders, and then I looked back to Arcuade. Why don't you heal those 5? And then after that, we can talk further. Arcuade nodded and quickly cast a combination of the basic holy magic spells, recovery, and healing. That was enough to heal the 5 otherworlders of all their wounds as well as regenerate their stamina and blood. Most of the unique skills these guys had weren't exactly combat related, but they were useful nonetheless. Have you analyzed them, Odin? Yes, it has been done. Good. So, what do you think about these guys? I asked Arcuade. While they are not as strong as they could be, I have determined that none of them have any bad intentions for you, my lord. I nodded. That's good then. I can just have Megaman or someone else train them up to par. Arcuade nodded. Indeed, that was what I was thinking as well. I looked down at the still kneeling otherworlders, who now numbered 17 since the one Zaruseed healed up joined them. Well, I'll be leaving you in my subordinate's care. I don't expect all that much from you, you don't need to work yourselves to the bone. You guys have already had a pretty bad hand dealt to you, so feel free to take some time off if you want. I'll have Arcuade explain the finer details of what you have access to as my subordinates another time. Yes, my lord. Why don't you have them go explore Tempest a bit, Arcuade? If that is what you wish, then it shall be done. I nodded. Good. Arcuade and I spoke a bit more before I left. I checked on Mariabelle through spiritual domination. It seems Mariabelle had just left with Yoki in tow. They were traveling in the same direction in separate carriages. My connection with Mariabelle was not severed, and that's enough to tell me that Yoki did not use Andi's skill on her. That means I do still have a few hours until Yoki and Mariabelle have left Tempest territory. Perhaps I'll go and see what Rimuru students are up to. They did just find out one of their friends had left them. Of course, They don't know the finer details, just that Chloe is on an adventure as a hero. But still, I'm sure they do suspect something. They don't seem to be idiots after all. I felt Rimuru send me a thought communication. Felix. Yes, Rimuru. Yuki just left along with Maribel. He came to me to let me know he would be leaving and ended up mentioning that some noble he has a relationship with wished to discuss something with him and so he would be leaving with her. I assume this is your doing? Asked Rimuru. Yup, I plan to use Maribel to help me get Yuki somewhere. I can deal with him discreetly. Ah, I see. I guess I'll leave you to that, then. I'll take care of it. Remember Rimuru, Yuki has clearly made himself out to be an enemy. There is no need to feel bad for someone like that. I know. Thanks, Felix. I'm fairly certain that the reason Rimuru is so hesitant to harm Yuki and, previously, Hinata was due to his consumption of Shizu Aizawa. He had let it slip that he had access to some of her memories, perhaps he did not have just memories but also some of Shizu's emotions. In that case, it would be pretty normal for him to feel attached to Yuki. I shook my head. There was no point in thinking about that topic any further. Rimuru was capable of solving that issue on his own. I flew towards the newly built school in Tempest. It didn't take me long to land in the back area of the school that was meant for training. School was currently not in attendance due to it being a holiday, but the kids were still here. Felix! Yelled Kenya as he ran up to me. I gave him a nod. Hello, Kenya. I looked behind him and saw the other children also following along. What are you doing here? Asked Alice. I shrugged my shoulders. I was bored and had time to kill. I wanted to see what you were up to. My gaze turned to my right. It seems I was not the only one. Fufu, I had asked Rimuru if I could come to this newly built school of his. I was fairly curious about how he is educating his young. Said Elmjia. Kenya nodded. Yeah. Big Sisel has been really nice. Big Sisel, huh? I said while giving Elmjia a look. She puffed her chest up. Did you see how well behaved Gazel turned out? Of course, I am the big sister. Certainly old enough for it. I whispered. What was that? I rolled my eyes. No need to start a disagreement now. Nothing. Humphrey. Why are these immortals so defensive about their age? Women. You guys can go back to playing. They nodded and returned to their game of tag, though calling it just tag was a bit of a stretch.